This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's a beautiful, misty morning in the Mara, and I cannot wait to get down into the valley floor. This is Safari Live. I am in the middle of one of the true wilderness areas left in the world.
This is the most mind-blowing wildlife experience you could ever hope to have.
You are live, you are live.
Hello again, everyone. What a magical morning it is. And we haven't had many of these misty mornings down in the valley floor, so I really cannot wait to get down there and start exploring with all of you. My name is Scott. I'm teamed up with Davi on camera, and in the Mara, Taylor is also out today with Manu. She's way across on the other side of the Mara River, off in the distance, and I'm told that Steph is going to be doing bushwalk and Tristan is going to be taking you perusing through the Sabi Sands in a vehicle down in South Africa. So looking forward to the good prospects. I'm not entirely sure what my plans are just yet. May have a little look for their sausage tree pride along the escarpments, or may go and check if Scar is back in town down towards the Mara River. Time will tell, but I think it's time we head off and enjoy this beautiful scene. Tabi, nita ongea na Gladys sahi. Sawa? Asante sana. I forgot to organize my permit for today, so thankfully the lady at the gate that we've just driven through has agreed that I just organize it a bit later than normal, so I need to do that. And while we mosey on down the hill and sort out our permit to be in the park, I am going to be sending you across to Steph, like I said, who is on foot patrolling the sands. Morning, morning. We are definitely on foot out here in the Sabi Sand Game Reserve this morning. It's myself, Steph Winterboer on foot, and Jean-Ray this morning out here with you. And it is blowing. Thank goodness I don't have a lot of hair today, because otherwise it would be blowing around and flapping sideways in the wind. It's one of these very weird mornings where the clouds are a little bit too high for rain to fall, and the wind a little bit too strong for rain to fall, but if it drops, you never know what's going to happen. Now, windy days like this, generally animals go into hiding and undercover, and that is why we're skirting the edge of this particular thicket. We're looking to see what has come off of the top of the crests and is hiding out in the thickets to get away from the wind. And the mission for today is to see if we can find an elephant. I woke up this morning wanting to go and spend some time with an elephant. I see Jean-Ray is nodding his head vigorously behind the camera over there. I hope you're all sharing his enthusiasm this morning for it. It's cold. It's only 60 degrees where we are now, and 60 degrees for me is near Arctic temperatures. I start to get hypothermia at anything below 70 degrees, and so we're briskly walking to see if we can get ourselves warmed up this morning and see if we can get some of that coffee that I was swallowing before we left pumping through the veins. Now, for those of you who only join infrequently to the show, you'll notice that although there's a bit of green around at the moment, it is still very drab. And that's because although we've had our first rain here above 20 millimeters, which is about that much rain, we haven't had any significant rainfall just yet. It is just reaching, well, obviously we're in November at the moment. We just reached the end of our dry season, hell month as we call it here. That's October, where there's no moisture around. And we can expect more days like this as we get closer to summer. We don't yet know whether we're going to have a particularly wet year or particularly dry year just yet. But you'll see that things like this need to be filled before anything significantly green starts to grow. Anyway, on that note, why don't we go and send you over to Tristan, who's waiting to say good morning to you.
hear me now, Coast? There we go. So let's try that all again, because we're having a few technical little glitches this morning. But it is a cloudy day, as Steph said, and as he also said. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Senzo. And it is live, it is interactive, so hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or YouTube chat should you want to get hold of us. It is cloudy, it is rainy, it is overcast, so I do apologize if there's some spots on the lens. You will see Senzo wiping it from time to time. Hopefully that won't interfere with things too much. Now, the plan for this morning is, I'm not really sure what I'm going to get up to. I've come into the area where Shadow and Cub was yesterday, just to see if Shadow maybe came back and returned to the Cub and maybe decided to take her somewhere. So I'm just having a little look around, seeing if there's any signs of that. Other than that, I'm not quite sure. Maybe the Birmingham boys have come back from Torchwood, Buffelshoek area. So I'm going to go and scratch around and just see what I can find. That's at least the plan for the morning. Whether or not I'll be successful, I'm not quite sure. Now, it seems as though, by the sounds of things on the radio, that these lines have gone south into Nkoro, so we can write that one off. But hopefully Shadow will be around and her tracks will be around. I know she was left the Cub right where I am now, just behind me. Back across to Steph while I sort out all of these gremlins. We'll see you in a little bit.
As you know, bringing you a live show from the middle of Africa has its few issues, and one of them is sound from time to time. And I'm sure Tristan will figure it out. We've got Jared and Conrad, the two tech geniuses, on site here today, and I'm sure they'll figure it out quick. This is a nice surprise. This is one of the very few corkwoods that I've managed to find in the bush here. I think this is probably, only about the third one in 3 years that I've managed to find. So this is a corkwood. You get a few different corkwoods out here. In actual fact, there's whole patches of savanna that are called corkwood savannas. They belong to a genus called Comifera, and there's nothing really special about these trees, barring the fact that they've got wood that's exactly as I said, a very corky wood that you can use as a gap filler, door stopper. Wow, what else have I used corkwood for? You can bleed it and a resin comes out of it, and then you can take that resin and you can burn it, and it makes for a very aromatic incense, for lack of a better description. So this is a corkwood, and one that looks like it has been absolutely hammered over the last couple of years by probably all the passing traffic here. And you can see how supple this wood is. I can, with one hand, quite easily twist and torque the branches. I'm not going to damage it too much. This is, quite a special plant. You can see here that it's been hurt. See if I can show you here a little bit. Now, without cutting through its bark, you can see how easy it is to shave off the shaving. And you can basically dig your fingernail into this without too much of a story. So it has the texture of a really solid champagne cork. So something that you can dig your finger into and you can get into. And like I said, there's whole patches of savanna out here called Comifera woodland, but not where we are right now. This is it's quite a rare thing to see here. Here we have Combretum woodland, and Combretum woodland gives way to Comifera woodland a little bit closer to the escarpments, a little bit closer to the Drakensberg Mountains. But that's actually quite nice to see. I'll just mark that in my memory. Now, the reason why I came down this particular game path is there's a dead stump in that marula tree over there, and you can see the middle of the tree, the center stem of the tree has a dead branch. Now, marula trees with center stems like that are quite good homes for woodpeckers, and so I want to go there and go and see if there's a woodpecker or a barbet's nest that's starting there. And obviously there's good reason to see where nests are at this time of the year, is that most things have got babies and youngsters and are competing for nesting space. And we want to go and see if there's some nesting space over there, some decent nesting space, and perhaps find something interesting to show you. Must be honest with you, this wind is making shapes move in the bush here. It's catching my eye every now and again. It's when you walk around a lot here, you react to movements in the bush. It's the movement of a horn, or the movement of a hoof, or a trunk, or an ear flap. But when it's blowing like this, you don't actually know what is grass and branches moving and what wants to jump out and wear you as a helmet. Now, this tree definitely does have a cavity in it at the top there. And that cavity is actually large enough for quite a few things. Now, owls, you'll find even mammals, things like genets, bush babies, bats, would utilize cavities like that inside trees, and so that's actually quite an important home. Safe havens to live in the bush are very rare to find, in actual fact, and are hotly contested by a whole group of animals, not just the birds, but you'll have monitor lizards living in there, large snakes, pythons will winter or overwinter inside cavities like that. As I said, a lot of birds, owls, some eagles even. Not that size, you'll need something a little bit bigger than that for ground hornbills, but something very similar to that for a whole bunch of animals. So that there is prime real estate, and although nothing is there at the moment, it definitely looks like something might be there in the future, or has been there. Amanda, you want to know this morning, are there any Lebombo ironwoods around here? Amanda, you're not too far off in terms of finding Lebombo ironwoods. They're about 100 miles from here, due east on the Lebombo mountain range, and there you get thickets of these Lebombo ironwoods, an incredibly hard tree, as its name would suggest, that grows in very tight thickets that black rhino love to live in, but I haven't seen any Lebombo ironwoods off of the Lebombos. We now are on the western side of the Kruger National Park. The Lebombo mountain range forms the eastern side of the Kruger National Park, and that is where we find some Lebombo ironwoods, so about 100 miles away from here or so. What I've just picked is a clump of turpentine grass, and as its name, sorry, not turpentine grass, it is an aromatic grass. Oh, I just love the smell. You know, if you ever miss summer, and what you want to do is walk up to these grass. The reason why there's this thicket of grass here is because the essential oil that's inside this grass makes it distasteful to eat. It's got a very sharp taste. That tastes very similar to licking some turpentine or a paint thinner, and but when you smell it, it's got a beautiful summer wet grass, hay in a barn. If you've ever missed green, it's like, yeah. There's some very awesome smells out here, I must be honest. Alright, let's carry on going. I have my little... I don't suppose it would be good if I put a rope around it and like strapped it to my head and walked around with a big grass moustache. Anyway, looks like Tristan's managed to sort out his gremlins, and he's wanting to greet you properly, so we'll catch up with you in a little bit.
Well, we have hopefully sorted out gremlins for now. It seems as though they have vanquished. It was just an issue with a little piece of equipment that we added to the cameras that didn't seem to want to work. So that's been bypassed, and now hopefully things will be a lot better. But we've come along the Zoe's Road just to try and see if there's any sign of shadow and cub. Absolutely no sign whatsoever. There were some kudu, but of course, as is the way the morning has started and going, they've all disappeared. So I'm going to try and see if I can find at least one again. There should be one up in front here. There is one over here. It's a very mangy individual, unfortunately. It doesn't look the best of all the kudus that I've ever seen in my life, but I'm sure it will recover, especially if we keep getting conditions like this where a bit of rain does come through. But you can see that coat is quite pitted with sort of bald patches and scabby patches, which is exactly what mange does, and causes a massive amount of itching and scratching that occurs by rubbing on trees and various other things that causes hair to fall out, and unfortunately it must be very uncomfortable for that poor female. But she's in healthy condition otherwise. She's nice and full and round and fat, and she doesn't have any sort of sign of dehydration or anything like that I can see. At least there is still some water around that she can keep herself hydrated and at least keep water coming in. So I think she'll be alright. Also, when they're in adult phase like that, then it's generally okay. When they're bigger, stronger, their immune systems can cope with it. Even though the coat doesn't look very good, the actual immune system seems to do okay. It's when they're young animals that mange really can be have quite a big effect on them. Right, but we're going to carry on because that kudu has now carried into a thicket. In terms of shadow and cub, I have no idea where they've gone, unless shadow just didn't come back to the cub last night, which is of course very possible. And in conditions like this, I would imagine that we will have a situation where a lot of our predators would have been hunting last night, so we would have had a situation where shadow or any of the other leopards in overcast, gloomy conditions like this, particularly in the early hours of this morning, you would have found that they would have gone after quite a few animals and hunted quite a bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is some sort of sign of a carcass somewhere around this reserve. Whether it be on Djuma, I'm not quite sure, but hopefully it will be. Hopefully we're going to find some sort of sign of it. Failing all of that, we might head towards Tumba on Chitwa and see if he's around, because I know he was left in the camp last night and maybe he's got himself a little snack somewhere around there. But I don't know if we're going to get too much more rain. It seems as though it's starting to kind of lift a little bit in the east, which is exactly what kind of where the rain normally comes from. It's much like yesterday morning, where it started off a bit gloomy and dreary and drizzly, and it's then started to lift as that sun has gotten a bit higher. And so I think we're going to have a situation where it's going to be maybe a little bit similar to what we had yesterday, where it will break apart. I'm not sure. Difficult to say. Weather here is so fickle, and you can start in the morning in brilliant sunshine and end the drive in pouring rain, or vice versa. So we'll just have to see how it goes over the next little bit, and hopefully it won't rain too much, because like I say, the rain and cameras and all that kind of stuff doesn't really work very well. So hoping that it will be a nice clear start to our day, and that the rain will subside and stay away for the next little bit. It can come after the drive. We don't mind a bit of rain after game drive. That's perfectly okay, and we'll have to just kind of, like I say, wipe the lens every now and then. There's a few spots of rain that do get onto it. I do apologize. So hopefully it will kind of come after game drive and between this afternoon, and we'll get lots of rain and fill up all those pans that Steph was alluding to a little bit earlier. But so far, not much to work on. I actually think I might just do a little loop back and maybe go check the hyena den. I don't know. I'll see. I know that Tax and Aubrey were out just now. They were thinking about going there, so I'll just have to confirm with them. I haven't managed to get them on the radio just now, so I was just trying to sort out the camera. But once we kind of carry on, I'll try and chat to them just now and see where they've headed, and if they've gone in that direction, well, then they'll be able to give us an update. Now, it's important when driving along roads like this in the early mornings is always to check these sort of junction areas. So this is areas where animals often either come out or cross roads from out of the bush and then onto a road itself. So always worth just taking your time when kind of turning these little bends and just making 100% sure that no tracks actually come down. Now, it seems as though nothing has come this way, which is, I was a little bit surprised. I was hoping that Shadow and Cub's trucks would come this side. It's been a while since she's actually used this road. I've kind of driven it quite a lot, and in the beginning when we first had this road and it first became available to us, she used to find that she used to walk here a lot with that cub, and we saw her in this area a few times, but it seems as though over the last little bit she's refrained from using it nearly as much as what she's been using Zoe's road. So if there's nothing here, I'll go back towards Zoe's and then just slowly upwards, and I wonder, maybe she's managed, like I say, to get the cub and sneak her a different direction. Henny, yes, predators will hunt and feed off animals with mange. It does happen. I've seen mangy kurus being eaten before. I think they ideally wouldn't want to be eating that, but they're opportunistic animals, and if, let's say, in a chase, that's the animal that comes closest and they're able to grab it, they will grab it and they will feed off it. It might not be the individual that they selected, but sometimes in the chaos of a hunt, it's not always that animal that actually gets taken down. So yes, like I say, I have seen wild dogs, I've seen leopard, and I've seen lions all eating a mangy animal. So it does happen from time to time. You'll find, like I say though, as long as they groom themselves regularly and they keep themselves really clean and they're a healthy individual with a strong immune system, you'll find that they generally are able to deal with the mites not too bad. They might get a little bit of a sort of outbreak and then it goes away again once the kind of rains come in. If you look at the Birmingham males, for example, it's a prime example. Tinio still shows a few signs of it on his tummy, but the rest of them are all fairly good now. They really don't have sort of too many signs. I was actually looking at a video of them from yesterday, because all 4 of them were together yesterday on Buffelshoek, and I saw a video on all 4 of them. They are looking magnificent, all of them. They've all got these big manes now. Actually, for a second I didn't even recognize them as the Birmingham boys until Mfumo came past, but they do look incredible at the moment. So they've managed to bounce back from it, and like I say, as long as they're adults and they're feeding and they're able to groom themselves and they're able to kind of keep that immune system up and at an acceptable level, then they generally are okay with mangy sort of animals and eating them and even grooming it off themselves. But I wonder, talking about all of these things, is if the Styx Pride is going to be around at some point. It's been a while since we've seen the Styx come towards Djuma, so I would like to actually see them. I suppose it would be nice just to catch up and see, especially those new little cubs. We haven't yet seen them on drive, so I would love to have a little look at those. Maybe today's the day that we find them. But while I kind of investigate all of these areas, check around, see if there is any sign for our Styx and their cubs, let's go back across to Steph and see where he's heading to and what he's going to be up to. I know he's looking for elephants, but hopefully he'll find them in the near future.
We definitely are still looking for some elephant, and we're busy marching through these drainage lines here, one in an effort to stay warm, and another one because the wind is really playing havoc with our hearing here. We're hearing some noises off to the side, don't quite know what it is. The discussion ranges from an elephant to a grey-headed bushrack on what it is, to give you an idea of the confusion that this wind creates. You can't tell the difference between a bird this big and an elephant bigger than this. But nevertheless, what we're going to be doing is checking out all of the haunts that we know that elephant like to frequent on blustery days, but also dry days like this. And they tend to hang around on the valley edges of the Mulwati drainage line, which is a big drainage line that bisects Djuma. And we are walking down the bank of it right now and going to all the favorite elephant thickets. We're getting this every now and again, this wind bringing with it some moisture, which is why there's still a rain cover on everything, including Jandre, who looks like a ninja turtle, like a little bush ninja turtle. And then it's an effort to keep everything dry. There's a lot of things going on here at the moment. But obviously, nothing that we'd really be able to show you. This is quite interesting. Here you can see the after effects of one of the last fires that we had. So this was a tree that was standing over here. Let's see if we can see where it's standing. Quite often it would just fall over, must have just fallen over exactly where it is now. And it would have died, and then when the fire came through here, which there hasn't been in quite some time, the fire would have lit the stump and burned away the bottom of the stump, causing it to fall over. At that point, the fire would have carried on smouldering and probably found that at the time of the fire, it rained pretty soon after that, or the fire started late in the afternoon, which then caused the fire to go out. But generally speaking, if fires are in the earlier part of the dry season, so anywhere from about July through to September sometime, this entire stump would have burnt out to an ash print of it on the floor, leaving smouldering coals burning sometimes for weeks at a time. I know one of the trees, a leadwood tree that caught alight in the Sabi Sands, I monitored for 5 weeks. It burnt before it finally burnt out. You could even see the individual branches and branchlets on the floor. But this one obviously hasn't had that and has been put down. Now, these cavities always make for exciting things to look in. And this one is no different. This one has got a colony of widow spiders living in it. Now, widow spiders build a web called a cobweb, which is between two parallel places, and they have tripwires, or basically, let me say, they have snares that is taken down to a tripwire on the bottom of the floor. So it would have the actual spring mechanism, the web would be on the top of the stump. It would then have a tripwire going down to an attachment point on the bottom. Any insect walking on the bottom of the stump would trip the tripwire, and it would be suspended in the air. So the spring would set and it would be lifted off the air, and obviously with its legs up in the air, wouldn't be able to crawl anywhere. The spider would then come and eat it. It's a very sophisticated web, needing two parallel places. And inside here, if we can put, Jean-Ray, will it be possible to stick your camera in there, or do we have to try and turn the leadwood stuff?
Just now, but I don't see a spider.
So the clue to this being a button spider or widow's home is those round, spiky, bald egg sacs that you can see inside there. That is a very clear indication. Only the widow spiders make those round, spiky balls. And just like the sac spider from yesterday, the widow spiders are of medical importance. They're the only dangerous neurotoxic venom spider that we find in South Africa. You absolutely do not want to get bitten by one of those things. It'll have the same sort of net effect as an elephant using you as a toothpick or as a toe scrubber, and a lion swallowing you as well. So you don't want to go get yourself bitten by that. So you don't stick your hands into cavities like this. If you can possibly help it. I'd love to be able to turn the stump around, but I think I'd need to be an elephant to do that. Move it, but I won't be able to turn it around for you. Anyway, we'll have to look for some more widow spiders for you and show you what one actually looks like. Right, let's carry on. Aaron, you'd like to know if there's any poisonous plants like poison ivy around here. We actually do have a fireweed out here, which is very similar to poison ivy. Jean-Ray and I happened to sit in one once doing a very similar thing that we're doing here. And the colony that I know of is not too far away. Just over the hill there is this colony of fireweed. Other than that, we get numerous poisonous plants. The one that jumps to mind right off the bat, Aaron, is a tambweti tree. We also have a multitude of bulbs and funguses that are quite poisonous, and then of course the most poisonous one that I know of is the lucky bean creeper, or the Abris prickitoria, which grows pretty much all over, and that is the most poisonous thing. One little seed, which is about that big, is enough to kill me or you if you just had to break it just with a single bite and swallow it. So that's about the most poisonous plant that I can think of right now. But definitely, Aaron, definitely poisonous plants out here. Yes, have a look at this sign that you can see here in the bush. This tree would have been animals would have been able to see it from a far distance away. Look at the mud that's been rubbed off at the height of a rhinoceros. Isn't that cool? A rhinoceros came through here and went for a mud bath somewhere close, saw this as a scratching post, and then walked through it. And as they walked through it, come and look, left their mud all over the place. That's very cool. And then carried on brushing off the mud to this point here, and in the same direction we're walking as well. I'll show you now how I know that. Sorry, no, other direction. Come through, Jean-Ray. There we go. And you can see here how the mud has been packed onto the tree. Wow, it was a proper mud bath, eh? And I know that it's at a rhino level, not at an elephant level, because the majority of mud is at this level here, and the majority of mud at an elephant's belly would be this level here. You can actually see where elephants have scratched before. You can see where the tree has smoothed itself here versus over here. Right, Tristan's found some life, so before it runs away, off you go.
We have indeed. We found 2 hyenas that are busy scent marking all over the place. They're actually at a latrine for hyenas. There's hyena dung everywhere, and it's our individual with the blind right eye. I've seen her a few times before on Arethusa. I don't know where it sits within the clan structure, but I have seen it around this area before. Sorry, Sens, my head was in the way there. But the reason why we found these hyenas is because I am 99.9% sure that there are wild dogs around. We had impalas just come flying past us in every direction just now as soon as we linked away, and so now I'm trying to find them. And as we came out onto the main road, which is where the impalas all started running from, these guys were on the road. So I don't know if maybe the dogs are somewhere here, but it's interesting nonetheless. But look at the behavior. You see how the tail's up, head is down. This is typical when they come across a latrine for other hyenas and themselves. They'll smell, they'll sniff, and that tail up indicates that there's a little bit of excitement as they kind of sniff around here and work out what's going on. But very cool to see the 2 of them kind of at the actual latrine site and pasting and doing their thing as well. Now, whether or not they're going to continue going up the road, or if they're going to maybe change direction and head deeper into Arethusa, which is exactly what they look like they may be doing, I don't know. But nice to see them. Like I say, this is an individual I used to see a lot on Arethusa. I used to see them fighting many times with the Solala Pride around Arethusa airstrip, and then even to the west of that into Elephant Plains and Shirley's. But I'll try and just go forward a little bit, because it seems as though they're still sniffing and carrying on. Chitty chatty Meg, no, both male and female hyenas will scent mark. You'll find both doing it. They'll paste in the same place. It's not just a male or a female that does it. Both sexes will definitely do so. But there they go, off they meander deeper into Arethusa itself, and so we're not going to be able to follow them any further. But at least a nice little glimpse into the world of our hyenas. It's always nice to catch up with them, and these overcast kind of rainy conditions will mean that we will find a number of these guys still moving around and still being fairly active, given that there is a bit of kind of overcast cool weather and dingy weather. It allows these guys to move around quite a bit. Right, let's go back to where I had exploding impalas. Of course, with wild dogs you don't really have time to mess around, but it was better that we came and saw just driving around for nothing. But definitely something caused a massive. The impalas, and like I say, with impalas, there's only one predator that causes an impala to do that. Normally, they'll snort and they'll make an alarm call and they'll really kind of shout at whatever predator it is to tell them that they've seen them. But with wild dogs, there's no time for that. So everybody bombshells, and just the way that they were running, if it was male impalas chasing one another, you would find the males behind each other kind of chasing like this and lots of vocalizing, whereas this was completely silent. Everybody was running in different directions. Everybody was looking in different directions, which is typical of wild dogs. And so I reckon that the dogs may be somewhere here. They might still be on Arethusa side, because as I came out onto the road, there was a zebra that was staring into Arethusa, and so it then quickly ran off. And so it might be a situation where the dogs are still inside this side and they're chasing things over the road towards us, or they could be on Impala Plains area and things are running southwards. It's difficult to say, because like I say, impalas were literally just coming from every direction behind us, and so it was kind of couldn't really see exactly where they started from and where exactly they came from. But let's see, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll be able to find them somewhere here. I haven't seen any tracks crossing this road. Of course, it's also been kind of rushing around trying to get to them, because as we know with wild dogs, it's not like you can just spend 2 minutes trying to not like you can spend a lot of time trying to kind of scan areas. You've got to drive around all the time.
Kyle, you say you'd love to see wild dogs. I think you and many others, I'm a huge wild dog fan as well, so I wouldn't mind a bit of wild dog action early in the morning. The problem that we have at the moment with wild dogs, and I know it sounds really odd, but is that we have two this pack of 3 that runs around here, and the pack of 3 causes absolute havoc all the time, but they are so difficult to keep up with and so difficult to find. They tend to run in every direction. They tend to also not stop ever. They don't lie down. They're not like animals like the big packs that we see that will rest and sit and wait for everyone to regroup. Because there's only 3 of them, they tend to kind of move a lot and run a lot and really kind of go around in circles, and it's difficult to keep up. I'm just going to say good morning to Andrew. So Andrew's helping me out in the area. He's also around this side, and so maybe between the 2 of us we will be able to find something. The only problem is it looks like the weather is starting to close in on us. There's just one dark cloud that was on the sort of southern side of the reserve, and that dark cloud seems to have now hit us, and so I do apologize about the little spots and Senzo wiping the lens every now and then. You'll find that he'll do it regularly as we just kind of this dark cloud shifts over. Once this cloud goes, it's actually fairly sort of open behind that, and we should get a situation where this will all ease off. So it's just going to be a little bit of kind of misty weather for a while. Dos Santos, wild dog packs nowadays aren't as big as they used to be, but I've read books of wild dog packs going over 60, which is pretty insane when you think about it. So 60 wild dogs together must have just been the most ridiculous thing to have seen. Nowadays, the biggest pack that was in the Kruger or has been seen in the Kruger was a pack of recently as a pack of 32 dogs together. That's the biggest that I know of currently, but there was a pack last year that went over 40, but they then split, so it doesn't get much bigger than that anymore. Those are kind of the sizes, the really large sizes. Most of the dog packs that you see though are between sort of, I would say, between 6 and 20 individuals. That's generally the kind of average sizes that we see in this particular area. It seems to be that's what's sustainable, and after that they then start to split out and start to go and find their own food. I think a lot of it is to do with food availability at the end of the day, and being able to hunt enough food to survive. So you'll find a situation where a pack of 60 wild dogs, can you imagine how much food they've got to go through in a day just to be able to survive? It must be just the most ridiculous thing to feed those guys. I mean, they must go after really large prey animals, things like big kudu, wildebeest, because even smaller packs of 20 will start hunting those bigger animals already. So 60 wild dogs must be absolutely ferocious to deal with. Now we're going to go back onto the road that we just came down, because this is where we spotted all the impalas running around. Maybe I get lucky and I catch these dogs somewhere in this area. I'm hoping that's going to be the case. It's just the way that the impalas were running. Like I said, I mean, I could be completely wrong. It could have been something else that spooked them, and that they just decided to run in this, especially in weather like this. The animals are a little bit more jumpy, but it just didn't feel right. It felt like there was dogs around. All the impalas were running at full speed past us, and that's generally a sign of something chasing them. Right, so now we're going to carry on towards that area again. I'll see if I can find any signs. While I do that, let's go back to Steph, who I think is still walking around, and hopefully the rain is not getting to him too much wherever he is.
Rain's not getting to me too much. Thanks, Tristan. It's a little bit like my forehead being sort of a windscreen is collecting a little bit of moisture, but nothing uncommon. What I'm seeing over here though is I've got some signs that something is living underneath this stump. You see here? Something is doing some housekeeping. So bedding material, it could be virtually anything that's living underneath here. I was going to actually lift this up and see what it is, but I don't think I'm going to do it anymore. Now, it's never a good idea just to stick your face into things like this. Here's some more bedding. You can see how at the entrance to this particular burrow we've had grass cuttings coming out. Now, I'm trying in my mind to think what would cut this size grass and use it as a bedding, and for the life of me I cannot think of anything except for a cane rat But cane rats live in tunnels of grass that they make themselves underneath thick beds of grass. Now, there has been a cane rat colony in this particular area. Just down there, Scott and I found one about 2 years ago now. Since then, I haven't seen not even a track of a single one. Would hares do it? No, hares live above ground. Bushveld gerbils live in tunnels in the sand. So this is definitely, to me, it's a mammal. I don't know what mammal it is. I think I'll pose the question to Rexon and see if we can find something here. And I definitely don't want to lift up the stump and ruin such a nice house. So we'll carry on with the mystery left unsolved here and see if perhaps we can figure out what colony of something lives underneath there in time to come. I like mysteries like that. Difficult to fathom, but nevertheless quite nice to have. The fact that there's still so much unknown out here. Tristan, you'd like to know what the biggest termite mound is on Djuma, if I heard your question correctly. There's two, Tristan, that I know of that are in bulk. There's one, let me get my bearings exactly where we are. On that side, there's one in bulk that is literally as big as a small house. And then there's one tall one that is very close to Arathusa boundary on Djuma's side, which is easily about 3 stories up into the sky. And perhaps on one of these walks we'll take you out there and I'll go and show you. From here to where that is now is probably a 2-hour walk, and so not feasible to get to now, but definitely we'll be able to get to one of them in the next couple of days. What we are going to be doing though is visiting one of my favorite trees on the property. It's a enormous weeping boerbean tree on top of a building-sized termite mound that is a couple of 100 yards in front of us here, and that's where I'm aiming. That's where my trajectory is, and so keep on watching, don't go anywhere, because we're going to be on a building-sized termite mound in the next couple of minutes at least anyway. Wow, it's freezing. You know, on days like this you need a fire, you need a small campsite, you need something warm in your body. James, you'd like to know what my favorite 3 survival tools are. That's a good question, James. I suppose this, let me show you, I suppose is the best way of doing it. The one I use most is a good quality knife, a bushcraft knife. These are fairly inexpensive to get, and the steel is good. They're easy to sharpen, and I use it all the time and basically for everything. So a good quality knife is a good idea to have. Another thing which is a good idea to have is a water bottle. That is, I use it probably about as much as my knife. This particular water bottle has a canteen in it, which I also use a lot. And so this particular water bottle has a canteen that you can cook and boil things on. You know, you can play around with that as well. Another one to have around or in a pack is a magnifying glass. So I use that to start fires. That you either use chemicals, or you've seen me use some chemicals before in a neat little trick. Magnifying glass in the middle of summer is just the quickest, easiest way to get a fire. And then of course you could use a flint and steel as well. Those are very good if you're walking through bush like this at the moment where there is no sun and where things can get wet. So you can use flint and steel. What else do I use quite often out here? My favorite tricks. Yeah, that's if I were to tell you what I would deem as my 3 favorite, it would be the knife. So there, and cup, and magnifying glass. Those would be not 3, that's 4, but there you're looking at the things that I personally use here. Now don't forget that survival kits and survival stuff needs to be keyed to the environment that you're walking in or that you're working in, and it can change. You shouldn't just get stuck on, say, a zombie apocalypse bag and have everything in it. So the weight that you'll be carrying around will be tremendous, and you're going to pack a whole bunch of stuff that's irrelevant, and you might forget something that isn't, or that is important. And so it's important to assess what environment you're going into, what are the conditions that you're going to be encountering, or what you're most likely to encounter, what are you going to need, and then to pack your bag or to pack your outdoor bag with that in mind. So, the fact that I carry around this and I value these particular items is only because of the type of walking around that I do here. And there is 2 bags. Today, Herbie's gone on a break for about a week. We're walking around with Rexon, and Rexon carries around a first aid kit. I just carry around a backpack full of goodies and toys and tricks and gadgets and gimmicks. But if you were going into the outdoor and you were looking at spending some significant time out there, and it was far away from services, you absolutely do want to take some time to assess where you're going into and then pack your bag accordingly. I don't like heavy backpacks. I never have. They are cumbersome. They make you tired. You burn a lot more calories walking around with these heavy backpacks, and so I get very particular with what I pack into my bag. I take a long time to prepare for wilderness trails, even down to the amount of calories that I pack into the bag for food. Sleeping, of course, while I have slept many years on the floor, I tend now to save some weight in other areas and pack in a hammock, and I like to sleep suspended off the floor. And then, of course, having a sleeping bag, if you can possibly carry one around, is also a good idea. It just makes days like this that much more comfortable. Right, now I know Tristan is waiting on one of our boundaries for some wild dog to cross in, and I'm sure he's got an update for you on what those animals are busy doing.
Well, we're not waiting, we're just trying to see if we can find them, but it sounds like they're in Arethusa and are going deeper in, so I think that's what I can hear. It's very difficult to hear what's going on that side of the world, but it sounds like that's what's happening, and so that's why we saw impalas running, but the dogs are going deeper into Arethusa. So unfortunately that's the case. Now, like I said, I'm sorry about the little wiping every now and then. No matter if we have our rain roofs on or not, when we drive, it just causes rain to obviously get sucked in towards the lens, and it looks as though it's just going to get worse and worse now. That behind that dark cloud is now another dark cloud, and so I feel like we're going to just get more and more of this sort of steady, misty rain this morning, which is okay. It's the way it goes. We tend to see it happen every now and then. Strange kind of weather though for this time of the year. This is normally the kind of weather we would associate with April and our autumn going into our winter. This is the normal kind of Easter rains that we get, but I suppose, well, everything's a bit crazy these days, and so we're getting it now in our spring season instead. And like Steph and I have both said, is we do need the rain desperately. It would be nice though if it just waited for a couple hours until we could head back to actually try drives, that's for sure. Anyway, it's okay. Make do with what we've got, and I'm sure we'll be able to find some nice things. Now Senzo is busy just checking his camera because he's making sure that all the rain covers on correctly and making sure that everything is okay, which is good. It's the way that things need to be done, so well done, Senzo. It seems as though he's made a nice plan with being able to put the cover on, which is good news. Now, I'm not quite sure where else to go and check. I think maybe let's head down towards Treehouse Dam. There's somebody that's at the hyena den at the moment. I haven't heard if it's active or not. So they just said they were there. I don't know what that means, as if there is actually hyenas around or if they are not there. But it'll be interesting to hear what's happening on that side of the world, because if it's everywhere else, I think it'll be a perfect morning, particularly in these kind of conditions, just to spend some time at the den itself and try and see what's been happening on that side and see what's been going on. But I think before we do that, like I say, let's do Treehouse, Twin Dams, just double check that there's nothing moving around there. I believe that there was tracks for those male lions not too far from Cheetah Cut Line, so you never know, maybe they've come down towards Twin Dams. It does happen from time to time, although there was no calling or anything like that that would indicate that they came onto Djuma. Normally when you have a lot of lions around, you'll find that they call quite a bit, so it doesn't sound like there was too much going on. Right, now I believe the Mara had a few little gremlins around and we're struggling and fighting them off, but it seems like our tech geniuses have managed to get that right, and so let's go back across to Scotty and see what he's been up to.
Hello everyone, and yes, we have had some gremlins, but thankfully, at least on our vehicle, we have not found too much. So you haven't missed out on much. I'm not sure what Taylor's up to. That was a beautiful pin-tailed wider, and there's quite a few of them around at the moment, and what's interesting is that I think they've grown their breeding plumage. Santasana, Jumbo, I think they've just developed their breeding plumage quite recently, so even though they would have been around for the last few months, we haven't really noticed them as much because they wouldn't have looked as impressive until now. But they're trying to impress the ladies with their big long tail. We did have a brief look in the area of where we had the sausage tree pride yesterday evening. Didn't seem to find any signs of them, so we've decided to drive along the Mara River Road because there just tends to be a bit more happening down here in terms of general game, and I am hoping that we get to spend some time with Scar, a big male lion. He's usually about 4 or 5 miles further down this road. That's his usual area that he likes to hang out on when he...
So unfortunately, there's still a few little gremlins, and I was just discussing, it's nice to see that the guys in the Mara have been able to spend some time with a lot of different animals, and I was actually chatting to Taylor last night about her gerbils and how random it was that some kind of safari company that has a rodent expert that works near the Mara was able to ID them. Well, they think they were able to ID them. I'm not sure if there was a conclusion reached, but anyway, it was just nice to see that they're spending time with a lot of other things, and it's amazing actually the diversity in the Mara. It really is very, very cool. Anyway, we're still just coasting along Philemon's cut line. We're just having a little look around. There's been some tracks for some wildebeest, and that's really about it actually. Our little vulture chick that is on Philemon's cut line, I was having a look to see it, but I think in this weather it is so hunkered down, all I could see was sticks and what looked like the tiny back of a vulture, but it seemed as though it was kind of curled up and just one little feather that you could see, but it really wasn't great. So I think we'll have to abandon looking for the birds this morning. If I was a bird on a nest, I'd also be curled up and tucked up and trying to stay as kind of warm and as dry as possible. So I think our little vulture chick is not really enjoying the weather very much, but that's okay. It's the way it goes. The problem with checking the dams this morning would be that there's not very much actually going on, and there's really very little in terms of that driving them towards water in weather conditions like this, but we'll check it anyway just in case. Maybe there's a starting point for tracks. Right, now somebody who has a infinite love for trees and well, trees would be loving the water that is falling is Steph Winterberg, and I believe he's with them once again, and I wonder if he's going to give this tree a hug.
I might actually give this tree a hug. He's a dear friend of mine. This is that massive termite mound that I told Aaron just now and all of you that we'd be visiting. And one of my favorite friends out here is this giant weeping boerbead tree. But Aaron, if you are still watching, just to give you an idea of how big this termite mound actually is, this is one of the larger of the termite mounds out here, and obviously judging from the tree, it's 200 years old, growing on it, very, very old. Now, I'll climb up it, and I'll show you, if I don't get warthogged here first, I'll show you how big this thing actually is. There I'm standing on the top of it now, and I'm easily a good 2 stories or so above the ground, and from myself to you is the distance on the other side of this termite mound. That's how big it is. So that's the span that this termite mound reaches. Can you just imagine how far it actually would be? And then, of course, this old tree growing on top of this termite mound. This is the Scotia or Scotia brachypetala, or the weeping boerbean tree, and called weeping because they get a significant amount of sap runs that come down their bark in summer, and of course are one of the trees that start to flower first in the season as well, and are a very important food source for insects that feed on nectar and birds, and then of course the associated predators of those animals as well. And just one of the early trees, early flowering trees at least anyway. Alright, we'll come down here, we'll take you around the front end. Something's happened to this branch. Some naughty, the little boy in me says I want to pull this thing and see if it'll come down. But then the rational person in me says if that falls on my head, it's going to create a headache that I don't think a paracetamol tablet's going to fix. I'm slowly starting to warm up, not much. And it's probably still around the 60 degrees Fahrenheit level. And we are now in an area where there's a good chance that we find some elephant. This area where we are now is we almost always find elephants in the dry season here, or at least some signs of elephant passage, and it's because it's where two drainage lines or two creek beds bisect or intersect one another, not bisect, intersect one another. Lots of good vegetation around, lots of good quality grass around, and of course that means that there's good opportunities for feeding. And then because it's in a depression, on windy days like this and blustery days like this, it's quiet. You can actually see that. Let's see. You can have a look at the leaves over there on top of the tree. You'll see that the leaves are catching a lot of wind at the moment. And that comparatively speaking, now it's a bit blustery, but comparatively speaking, it's not that windy down here. So the deeper down we go into this little valley, the calmer it's going to get. And of course, it means that I need to keep my ears open. So while we cross into here and see if we can pick up any sign of these pachyderms I want to show you, we are going to be sending you over to Scott in the Mara for an update.
Oh, that would be very nice if Steph does manage to find some elephants on the bushwalk. But I'm sure in the meantime you're enjoying going through some of the finer details and different things that may be a little bit tricky to explain and talk about from the vehicle. And that is one of the joys of the bushwalk. You really can get intimate with the smaller things. Sorry you lost our picture a bit earlier. Dave pulled the cable out the back of the camera. He needed a break. Only kidding. Something appeared to have jiggled loose. And I was just saying that we're hoping to find a big male lion called Scar. He hangs out a little bit further down this road usually when he's across the side of the river. And I personally still haven't had the most joy regarding good sightings with him. I know some of you have been spoilt with some incredible scenes of him mating and on the prowl with some of the other guides, but I have yet to be so fortunate, and my days are numbered here in the Mara. What's the date today? The 8th. Well, I'm leaving on the 16th, so trying to make the most of this incredible wilderness while I am still here. I am going to be going to the moon after this. Only kidding. Sadly not. But going to another wonderful place, and I'm going to be joining Steph doing some bushwalks down in the Sabi Sands, which I'm incredibly excited about. I haven't spent time on foot in the sands since I left there over a year ago, so it's going to be a very, very pleasant scenario to be back on foot there. It's a beautiful dewy morning, and there's still a little bit of low-lying clouds, which is creating quite a moody morning. Oh no, don't run away. That guy, we could actually see the steam coming out of his nose when he was breathing. Let's hope he does it again. Come on, buddy. There you can see a little bit of... There we go. How cool is that? And these guys sure do know how to cast a death stare. Don't worry, boy. We're not here to eat you, nor your grass. We're just here to have a quick look around. Fear not. I've also got good news. We've seen no lions the whole morning. So, you guys can continue relaxing and enjoy chomping down on this lush, dewy grass. Wonderful. Now, like I said, I'm hoping to find a scar, or any lions really, and I am hoping that Taylor has some luck with relocating on the Musketeers. I know she had what sounded like an incredible sighting with them yesterday afternoon, so hopefully she will get lucky again. Failing that, there's lots of other cheetahs across that side of the river, and I'm trying to think of when I too should go across. I might wait for her to come back so we kind of take turns, but it almost probably does make sense for both of us to be across that side of the river at the moment. We just seem to be having more luck there. But you never know what is going to happen and when, so even yesterday we had some wonderful sightings of some lion across here. Hi, James. You ask an interesting question. You would like to know if there is anything that I will not miss about being in the Mara. And what comes to mind first is the fact that because this is a national reserve or conservancy, it's run quite differently to the Sabi Sands, which means we can't take out staff members as freely and readily on drives and even in between drives on little bumbles. And it's something that I really enjoy doing, being able to take the people who are stuck in the final control or the tech team or anyone really who isn't a guide or a cameraman. I like to be able to take them out on joyrides, whereas here it's a little bit more complicated. There's a little bit more red tape. So we've got a little bit more freedom in the Sabi Sands to have fun in between drives and share the magical places that we get to explore with some of the staff members. So that's probably one thing that I won't miss about the Mara. It must be said though, on the same note, that we have been allowed incredibly big traversing and we, you know, lots of special permission to be able to be out after dark when no one else is, but with that has come some strict rules. So we certainly are in a very fortunate position compared to everyone else that drives around the Mara, but still there's still one or two rules that prohibit me to do exactly what I want to do. I don't do well with rules. That's possibly why I'm hiding out in the wilderness away from policemen. So that's one thing that I'll miss. Yeah, probably that is one of the biggest things. And sometimes, you know, on a different note, there can be lots of vehicles in one sighting here, whereas in the Sabi Sands, there's only ever 3 vehicles in a sighting. So that certainly does make our lives easier. Sometimes here there can be as many as 40 vehicles in a sighting, and you guys have seen that whilst on safari with us. So that is something that I probably won't miss too dearly, too much. The tricky thing with me is, James, is that I tend to get bored quite easily, so I need to keep moving. And that's probably, I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I left Safari Live a year and a half ago, is I was simply in one place for too long. And then I start wanting to explore. I should have been a Maasai, a nomadic herder that can just move shop whenever you like without having a set base anywhere. But with the way Safari Live is going and the way we are growing at the moment, we could well expect to be going to a lot more wilderness areas and uncovering some incredible moments and scenes from not only various parts of Africa, but possibly around the world, possibly in the ocean. Sadly, I'm not going to be much good there because I'm not a scuba diver, but who knows, maybe it's time that I get my scuba diving license ready for as and when Safari Live takes you under the water into the depths of the ocean. Imagine that. Anna Marie, yes, I have missed being on bushwalk dearly. And I guess another thing that kind of compounds that is the fact that the year that I was away from Safari Live, even though I was in a wilderness area, I was a camp manager. And we were very busy and didn't get much to explore the wilderness area that we were in. So it's a very, very different role to being a guide where you go out on the adventures with the guests. As the camp manager, you wave the guides off and the guests off in the morning. Morning, goodbye, have fun. And then you make sure you've got enough toilet paper in stock for the month and deal with all the staff's problems, so there's not as much time to explore. It's definitely good for me. I learnt about emails and spreadsheets and such things, or at least attempted to, not very successfully. So for the last year before I rejoined Safari Live, I was office bound in a wilderness area. So I haven't spent much time in the bush other than the last few months when I've been here, and we haven't done any walking. So really looking forward to it. The thing I look forward to the most on the bushwalk is tracking down animals and then sneaking around the big dangerous ones like elephants. Wonderful. Well, speaking of the bushwalk, why don't you guys go back and check in with Steph and see how he's coming along.
We're coming along fine, thank you very much, Scott. He definitely is right. So Scott, I'm just busy having a chuckle with Genre here about Scott learning or using the word I learnt about emails. It was more he became aware that something called an email existed, but has yet to learn anything about emails actually. Anyway, enough joking over there. We're still busy trying to figure out where all the elephants have gone. We're basically just sticking our nose into every elephant hideout and thicket that I know of. This is a famous, well, at least for me anyway, it's a famous thicket for elephants. They come and spend a lot of time here in summer. You can see that nothing recently has been here, unfortunately. There's a lot of elephant dung around, but there's not a lot of new dung around, not a lot of movement. When elephants come and spend the hot part of a day here, they tend to kick around in their boredom, standing in the trees. They tend to kick around the bushes and play with their feet, and so you get these scuff marks like this when elephants spend a lot of time in any particular place. And this is just one of those places where we find elephant. The reason for that is this huge tamboti tree here. It provides decent shade in the middle of a very hot day, and you can see that it's inside here. The wind has died down to virtually nothing, and so will be quite nice for elephant in here. There's another massive tamboti tree. These trees are also incredibly slow growing, and so this tree is also probably close on a couple of 100 years old, probably a little bit more than that as well. Wow! Beautiful tree. You can see here the bed of elephant dung that has been kicked and distributed and kicked again and redistributed, and it's this that makes for such a fantastic campsite. Now, although quite dangerous to sleep in Tambuti thickets because of the fact that they are such great places for elephant to come and frequent, they make for very good camping sites or wilderness camping sites. So if it were me and I was needing a place to camp for the evening, this definitely would be a consideration for me. There's no thorns, relatively speaking. The elephants have kicked up a lot of dust, and of course you've got the protection of this huge old tree right here. Now, one thing that we have seemed to miss this year, and I missed it last year as well, was the jumping beans. Now, the seeds of the Tambuti tree get infested with the moth larvae, and the moth larvae jinx inside the seed and causes the seed to jump around. And 2 years ago, myself, James and Scott found a thicket where you couldn't really see the floor. It was just this carpet of jumping seeds. We missed it last year, and this year we seem to have missed it again. There's unfortunately no seeds left. I'm going to go and see if there's any seeds on this particular tree, but I don't even see any seed casings. I wonder what's happened. Have we missed it again, or is it coming in December only? Let's see. The only way to check is going to be able to actually find some seeds, even if they're just busy new ones. Let's go and have a look over here. There's some more of this thicket. Hey, we just got to be careful when you're walking through here. Ali, you'd like to know if there's any butterflies and cocoons around. There definitely are. There's not as much as what will be in the next couple of months, and that's because caterpillars hatch this time of the year. They feed on the new leaves. They get enough metabolic energy to pupate, and then from pupation they go into butterflies, and that takes a few weeks and a few months into summer. So by January, February, midday, the butterflies here are absolutely insane. But it does take a few months for the caterpillars to build up enough of a metabolic reserve to jump phase, basically, and to then have enough energy. Wow, I'm a bit skittish here. For some reason my body's telling me that I must just be careful walking through here. You know, you develop this sense when you've been working in environments like this for a long time. And as I'm getting closer to this thicket, I'm building up in this anxiety, this feeling for some reason. You know, 9 times out of 10, it usually doesn't mean anything, but every now and again. So I can't see anything here, which is good. Oh, there's a nyala there. Now, I don't think it was the nyala that was giving me that impression. It may have been. You might find that my subconscious had picked up on the fact that or that some bird was reacting to us approaching that nyala by trying to give it a warning call, and the warning call that the bird was giving to the nyala from us was causing me to get some of that anxiety feeling. But obviously with the nyala there's no chance of a lion or a leopard, at least anyway, so I can keep. There's a seed here, so we haven't missed the. Yeah, you can have a look here, Jean. Sorry. There's probably a few more here. So there's the seed there. It's a funny 3-lobed seed. And at the moment, they're all infested with young moth larvae. And you're not filming the seeds. Jean-André's filming up my nostril. No, there's no moth larvae in my nostril, Jean. And so we haven't missed the good thing is that we haven't missed the lucky bean seeds, the jumping seeds yet, and hopefully around about Christmas time, I suppose, or before, somewhere around the end of this month, beginning of next, we'll be able to show you those. See if we can get closer to. There's a whole family of nyala inside there. There's not just one. Hello. hello. And you can see how they're hiding out in the thickets away from the cold, but also away from the wind, and staying in areas where where the bush isn't blowing as much, and so they can see things that are approaching them. Quite nice, eh? All right. So I see Taylor, or I hear that Taylor is ready to say good morning this morning. I don't think I've heard her on the show yet, and so we can catch up with you in a little bit.
Good morning, everybody. We have been out and about for quite some time. Just lots of gremlins this morning. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me today is Manu, and we have not had any luck with finding any cats. We have seen many tracks, many signs that they've been around, but sadly nothing on the Five Musketeers, the cheetahs, and nothing on those 4 male lions. Everything has vacated the area that they were in last night. So we didn't manage to relocate on the cheetah last night either. They got too far ahead of us and they were on the other side. They jumped through the other side of the lugger. I can just see vehicles going round and round and round within this area, so I don't think there's any confirmed sightings just yet. We'll see, of course. And I saw something quite interesting as well. Last night we had the cheetah and they moved past the big sausage tree, and on top of our tracks the lioness had come back, but her tracks were, well, they looked like she'd been running. So I'm not sure exactly what she was running from or what she was running to, but I couldn't find her. But I'm pretty sure that it's that same female that has the den, and she's just moved it further along that lugger. Now I don't know what to do, because I've searched everywhere. I mean, already this morning we've driven about 30 or 40 kilometers just going round and round, up and down, back and forth. But I have absolutely no idea where these cats could have gone. See, I think their route was sort of changed because that lioness chased them. So now I don't know where they would have gone. We checked further south, we checked further east, we checked further west. But we'll keep searching and hopefully we'll come right. We'll try and have some chats with the guides and see which areas they've had a look at, and we'll go and check other ones. Anyways, I'm going to send you back across to my friend Tristan, who also seems to be bumbling about, and maybe the luck for both of us will change.
Well, Taylor, we are bumbling about, and so far it's been very, 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 very quiet in all regards. The birds, the animals, everybody is not enjoying this rainy weather. Now I stopped because I had a hornbill, but that's flown away as well, which is fairly typical of the way things are going today. So we'll just carry on and see if we can find another hornbill somewhere else that is going to be more obliging and help us out and stay still. But I suppose it's just the kind of weather it is. It's animals are not going to be moving too much now. I think if they've hunted, or even if they haven't, it's starting to close in a little bit now. It's cold, it's wet, it's not very pleasant if you're a person or an animal, and so I think everybody's going to tuck in. Same with the birds. They're going to try and find places just to sit and try and stay out of this and not get too wet and too kind of bogged down with water, and so it's going to be a fairly sort of slow start to the day, if one wants to call it that. But you never know. Sometimes in this rainy weather you can get very odd things happening and random things at random times in random places. So we're just going to go and do exactly that. We're going to go and be random and drive around in random places, and hopefully we'll get lucky with something. It sounds like Tumba has gone on to a net, so we're not going to head down to Chitwa. But while we do that, I believe Scotty D is still in the Mara, and well, he's got something that the Mara is very famous for. I suppose not as famous as one of the other animals that does hang around with them, but they're still equally as famous to them.
This is one of the whitest zebra I've ever seen. Look at it compared to the one behind it. Really interesting, and lots of very thin stripes. Beautiful, beautiful coat. Hopefully it doesn't get torn to shreds by some ginormous crocodilians that are waiting patiently in the Mara River, and there is a chance that the zebra are thinking of crossing to the other side, to some greener pastures, and that is one of many, many crocodiles. Now, you would think that the zebra wouldn't even consider crossing with all those crocodiles there, but these crossings still do happen even when there's lots of crocodiles around. The crocodiles are always here, basically, and the crossings, surprisingly, still do occur. I guess the urge for food pushes the zebra into some compromising situations. Hello Tam, 95, you would like to know how we cross the river? With difficulty. The reason being is that there is only one bridge in the whole of the reserve, and that's right on the Tanzanian border. So it's about an hour's drive from our camp if we're hoofing it. And there's another bridge to the north, just outside of the reserve. So it's not as easy as we would like it to be. And that's probably why we don't spend as much time crisscrossing between the reserve, which is on the Mara Reserve, which is on the eastern side of the river, and the Mara Triangle, which is on the western side of the river, which is where we are now. Interestingly, that croc's already decided to start cooling down. That's why it's got its mouth open. And I'm quite surprised by that. I mean, the sun's only started getting warm in the last 10 or 15 minutes, yet it's obviously already got enough warmth, and that's why it's panting, essentially. Very good. We're going to send you off from a fairly sinister scene to one which is far more cute with Tristan.
Well, it is a bit sinister. Unfortunately, there's this little baby Nyala that's walking around all on its own. There is absolutely no sign of any other Nyalas anywhere nearby, no sign of its mom anywhere. It's far too young for the mother to be having another little lamb somewhere. You can see it sniffing around. And it's just kind of sitting right next to us, and it's not running like they generally would do. Lots of smelling. So I feel very sorry for it. It looks as though it might have been abandoned, well, not abandoned, but orphaned is probably the best way, which begs the question as to where is mom if she was captured. Where is she? Because I don't think this little one would have wandered too far by itself, so maybe, just maybe, one of the leopards managed to grab mom at some point, which is not very pleasant at all. It's a horrible thing to think about, and a little one of this size, unfortunately, the chances of its survival at that size is pretty much zero, to be honest. It is far too small to be able to cope with what's going on. It still probably requires a lot of its mom's milk and nutrients, and at the end of the day, it's also just not streetwise, and so it's going to wander itself into all kinds of problems, and I'm afraid to say that I don't think the survival of this little one is very good. It's a horrible thing to witness when you come across these little orphan babies, because you don't really know kind of what to do. It puts you in such a horrible place. Of course, we don't interfere and we don't really want to get involved in any way, but it's hard that you kind of, your heartstrings get pulled a little bit when you watch this little baby kind of walking around confused and trying to find its mother, but absolutely no sign. And you can see it's nervous. The wind blows, it gets a little kind of jumpy, there's a bit of rain falling, and it must be cold, it's wet, it's probably confused. It's just not a very pleasant scene at all. All I can say is that if that is the case and it does wander around here, as much as I would want to see it trying to survive, I almost feel like a quicker end would be better rather than a drawn-out long process of starvation and panic and all of that. I would rather something grabbed it fairly shortly, and that would be the end of that situation. Anyway, I think we're going to leave that little baby and hope that it finds somewhere to sort itself out and to be able to kind of get into a thicket, and maybe, you never know, maybe it will be an amazing story of a little one surviving. But let's go back to Scott with far more cheerier note and see how he's doing in the Mara, and I think he's got something, but I couldn't hear exactly what it is.
Now, I'm very surprised that these zebra have decided to come down to the water's edge. It may just be to have a drink. They may not be planning on crossing, but that zebra is right next to a crocodile, and I think they're going to go for it. Oh gosh, this is going to be hectic because there are so many crocodiles in front of this zebra. Look at all of them there. There's about 3 or 4 big crocs. And what's interesting is sometimes they actually don't go for the zebra immediately. They wait for some of the backrunners. Oh, there, the first one. And it seems like that is going to be enough of a reason not to be crossing this river this morning. Hello to everyone who has just joined us on Facebook. 2 zebra have just made their way into the Mara River, and a crocodile tried to catch one of them, and that's why they've all now headed away from the water's edge. They thankfully made it out safely, but that was a close call. Let's take a look at all, you were having a quick look at all the crocodiles there. There's about 5 or 6 monsters, and the reason why these zebra are hoping to cross the river is to get across to greener pastures on the other side, and we've had quite a number of incredible river crossings thus far since we've been here for about 4 or 5 months. It seems, though, that these guys are probably going to take their time to pluck up the courage to think about crossing again. Absolutely terrifying business being one of these animals having to cross the river. There are some ginormous dinosaur-like crocodiles that live here, easily capable of taking down fully grown zebra. Is this individual thinking of making another crossing? I would be very surprised. It looks like this is a pregnant female, judging by the size of her belly. So she's going to be a little bit slow and cumbersome. I might be wrong, it may not be one, but it does seem like she must be a pregnant female. Don't go across there, not carrying your very important cargo in your belly. Now, we were very fortunate with our timing. They came down to the water's edge. Oh, it looks like the zebra are getting a bit worked up with one another, taking out their frustrations on one another. Now that they probably realized it's not a good idea to cross the river. As I was saying, though, they only spent about 5 or 10 minutes weighing up the odds before 2 of them decided to take the plunge. But very shortly after that, a crocodile lurched out at them, and they fled back across onto the same side of the river. I'm guessing they probably are going to move off now after that initial scare. So apologies for calling you across after all the action had happened. To all of the Facebook viewers, we are coming to you live from the Masai Mara. It's unscripted, unedited, and therefore sometimes we get our timing a little bit wrong, and this morning was a good example of that. So now that the zebra are heading off, I think it's fair to say that we are going to say goodbye to you. Make sure you do keep tuned in to any of the notifications, and after that we will, well, hopefully we'll be able to find something interesting for you in the next few hours. Goodbye. Okay, I had to do the random 30 seconds of silence post Facebook viewers depart. Sadly, we fluffed that one because as soon as we called them, all the action had subsided. Oh well, that was very exciting while it lasted. I was very surprised that those 2 even managed to get into the water. And now that they are heading off, so will we. Maybe they're going to go and try and find another crossing point further downstream. Although these are some of the main spots that they like to use. Wonderful. Oh, I just want to show you one monster of a crocodile. That's just lying up on the bank there. An absolute Goliath. There's actually another one that I didn't notice just off to the left of him. It looked like a rock. Also an absolute brute. Woof! Those are some huge crocodiles. I wonder how old they are. They do live for very long periods of time. They could easily be 50, 60 years old. Who knows, maybe even older. Who knows how many wildebeest and zebra they've wrestled to the depths of the Mara River. Another behemoth over here. Oof. Not a good river to go tubing in. Okay, we're going to send you across to Tristan, who is meandering his way through the sands in the Joy, and we'll in the hope of finding something for you.
I hope so too, Scott. It would be nice if I found something. I would be quite joyful to find something and to break this sort of silence, if you would call it that. It's weird because of the kind of weather that we're having. Even the birds are not really talking. So if you look out to the left-hand side here, it's kind of this grey, misty, horrible sort of mess of coldness, really, and it's putting a bit of a dampener in terms of even the bird calls this morning. It just seems a bit kind of quiet and eerie almost. You can see there's a bit of a wind blowing, and then it's just this kind of wet and grey cold that's out there. And so I think everybody is just hunkering down at this stage. So it'd be nice to have something that just breaks all of that and causes a little bit of sound to be made. The only thing that I have heard calling this morning fairly regularly is the francolins. So the crested francolins have been making a lot of noise, and the coqui francolins too. Between the two of them, there's been lots of noise being made, but otherwise it's been very, very quiet. And you can see, like I say, it's kind of, when you get this kind of rain that falls in, when you get mist and cold weather like this, it almost comes like a blanket, and it just really muffles everything out and makes it actually quite hard to hear things. It's a strange kind of concept, but it is the way it is. And so hopefully, like I say, something will just break that silence, and maybe an alarm call of a kudu or an impala or something will set us in the right direction. But we shall carry on and forge forward. I'm going up towards Buffelshoek Dam just because I haven't been up this side of the world for the last few days, and might as well just come and have a little check around and just see what's going on. What I'm going to do is loop back onto the other side of where I saw that baby Nyala, just in case. You never know, maybe the mom is somewhere there with a predator, or, you know, feeding off her. I know it's a horrible thing to think about, but it is potentially true, and so it's worth just checking those areas and just seeing why this little one is an orphan and where exactly mom could be. At the end of the day, you never know, maybe the mother is somewhere there, and like I say, there's a predator that is with it. So we'll try and figure it out and have a little look around. That's at least the plan for now. But I think this is probably the first day that I've had in a very, 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 very long time where there hasn't been a single track to follow. So there hasn't been a single kind of lion or leopard or elephant track that's been worth actually investigating and looking for, which is quite strange. So I feel like there's going to be something somewhere that's going to pique my interest and that I'm going to be able to start kind of actively looking for, and I'm sure it will be somewhere around this area. I think Buffelshoek Dam is going to provide something. If not a sighting, there's going to be a track that I can try and follow, and maybe, just maybe, I'll get lucky and find something. That's the idea, at least. Of course, it could be a completely useless idea and nothing really comes from it, but it's worth checking anyway. At the end of the day, we've checked kind of down to the south, we've checked the west, we might as well come up and check the east as well and see what's going on in this northeastern corner, see if in fact there is anything moving around. Yesterday I did also have tracks for female and a male leopard going into Torchwood, so it's worth being this side because you never know, maybe one of those individuals has come back and they are somewhere on this sort of northern section. You never really know. And it's also a number of our male leopards move around in this area. We know that Tingana comes up here, Djuma, Mvula, Tandi, so you know, well, she's not a male, but at the end of the day she also moves around here, so there's lots of different leopards. Oh, sorry, little lilac-breasted roll, I didn't even see you. I was so busy looking at the rhino midden that I didn't notice a very soggy looking lilac-breasted roller. Are you going to land there for me? Yes, you are. Shame, this poor roller does not look like it's having a good day at all. Hopefully it will stay where it is because it's quite funny actually. It's, oh no, it's, there we go, it stayed right there. So It's very soggy, very puffy, and doesn't at all know it's flown. Don't worry, Senzo, it's gone. It's flown away, so let's not worry about that. I don't know what it is this morning. I don't know what we've done to offend all the birds, but every time I try and stop for a bird, they just fly today. I don't know what's the story. Maybe it's something to do with the weather, who knows. Right. Now I'm meandering about, checking around, looking, bumbling. It sounds like Taylor Mack is in the exact same process. She's also bumbling, but she's in a very different part of the world, and hopefully where she is, there's some glorious sunshine and she's not as cold as what we are down here.
Oh, Tristan, it's so sad. I'm feeling very defeated this morning. I'm not even going to try and lie to you. After having an amazing day, probably the best day I think I've ever had in the bush in my entire life, with just because of all the different things that have happened. It was quite cool, the different scenarios we were faced with.
Welcome back to the Bushwalk, and sorry about that. As you know, us coming to you from two different locations, 3,000 miles apart in the middle of these wilderness areas, sometimes means that you arrive unannounced. We're just having a chat about this particular thicket here, and the fact that it has two of the most common plants that grow on top of termite mounds. This is, of course, the num-num, and although this has no leaves on it at the moment, it does get a beautiful white flower and is characterized by the fact that it has this Y-shaped thorn. You can see here that, you know, peace sign thorn, the victory thorn, and gets a white, pleasantly smelling flower on it, and then is one of the very few plants out here that produces a fruit with latex, a white latex, that you can actually eat. Now, generally speaking, latex, and the presence of latex, so especially a white latex in plants, is a deterrent and a clear sign that you shouldn't eat anything. But this particular plant, with its evenly spaced Y-shaped thorn, makes for a very pleasant snack around summertime. The other one that grows on top of these thickets over here is this, which is the dwarf boer bean, and this is a very robust dwarf boer bean. I must be honest with you. They get eaten by almost everything out here, elephants in particular, and quite often they just coppice. Now, a coppiced plant is a plant that has had its stem broken, and where it's broken, it comes up as two, it gets broken again, and it forks again, and you find that these plants coppice quite a lot out here. What else coppices here that the elephants manage to coppice? The bloodwood, roundleaf bloodwood. So, for me at least anyway, these dwarf boer beans and the roundleaf bloodwoods are the two trees that elephant actually farm, and they farm the coppice, and they do that so that the branchlets stay young and tender and tasty, and there's many of them. And it gets a beautiful flower, and that was actually what I was hoping to show you. Here is its flower. This is the dwarf boer bean flower, and you can see how beautiful that actually is. Very similar to the weeping boer bean that we saw a little bit earlier. They are not the same species of tree, but they do have the same blood red flower, and that flower itself is used by a number of birds and insects to get nectar from. You can actually see. James, you want to know some of the most specialized plant species on Djuma? Let me think about that a bit while you have a look at this flower here that has got its selection of Polyrhynchus ant in it. So specialized plant, wow. The one that comes to mind first, although it definitely won't be the only one, is probably the orchid that we were having a look at yesterday, the leopard orchid. And the reason I say that is that this particular plant has managed to... Oh, I've got a piece of stick stuck in my eye from the hurricane that's been blowing around here today. This particular plant has has managed to without needing the host plant for any of its nutrients, managed to get over the problem of living in a forest where sunlight is the key, and not wanting to grow there, not taking the time to grow there. So it's managed to be, its seed is enticing so that it gets picked up and put down on a branch, and then it is developed this way of germinating in the air, creating a basket for itself which captures its food out of the air and then grows and lives elevated and suspended in the air without ever really touching the ground or needing to touch the ground, which of course in my mind plants have their roots in the soil and their leaves in the sun, and that's how they live, that's the connection. But this particular plant, the orchid, hasn't managed to doesn't do that. So that's just one. I suppose another one would be, what genre? One of the figs, I suppose. Also similar thing, a mistletoe. So mistletoes produce a seed that's very enticing for birds and quite sticky, and the seed or the plant has evolved this ability to produce a good tasting seed which a bird then eats, but also being sticky, the bird then needs to land on a horizontal branch to wipe its face on the branch so that it can wipe the seed off. The mistletoe then germinates, it injects a growth hormone into the host plant which causes a blooming in that plant, the woody structure of that plant, and that then holds the mistletoe in place. It then grows and feeds out of this bloom. So injects a type of steroid and growth hormone into the plant, creates a woody cup that the plant then produces, and then of course the mistletoe lives suspended up in the air as well. Once again, not needing to put its roots physically in the soil and its leaves up in the sky. And I find that quite amazing. Now, another thing that was amazing was yesterday we had a question from a viewer wanting to know how we age trees, and here I've got a sawn down tree with some of the growth rings. So 1 year would be that, and there's another year and another one, and then all the way in you can see how the tree grows in circles, and you just count that and that'll give you an idea of how old that tree was. Right, now Taylor has got some signal where she is at the moment, and so without further ado, I think let's go and send you 3,000 miles north to Taylor in the Mara.
Sorry about earlier. Just the gremlins got me as I went down into the dip before I could even get to the vultures, which was quite funny because I just carried on presenting for about another 5 or 6 minutes. I got out the carpet litter wrap. It was actually quite funny. But we've got zebra now and lots of impala, which is quite nice. Oh, I'm going to use you as a rubbing post. Isn't that nice? I suppose that's what other zebra are for, isn't it? And isn't it interesting how they stand? Well, they typically, when they stand one with, well, what's it, head to tail. And I wonder if it's not because of them having tails and using them as fly swatters. And essentially, if they stand like that, I mean, each zebra has got its own personal fly swatter around its face. Well, I don't know if that's the case. I would imagine that's what I would be doing. You can actually hear the oxpeckers. They're coming in for a landing. There they are. They've landed on the zebra to the left. Who do we have? What type of oxpeckers do we have? We've got red-billed oxpeckers. Cool. We don't often see them. We typically see more of the yellow-billed oxpeckers. That's always a nice one. And I wonder if those aren't sub-adults or juveniles that are hanging around. Very chatty. They don't look to have darker beaks. No, they all look like adults. They've all got their orbital rings. They've all got bright red beaks. Very, very busy on that zebra, though, as you can see, tucking away, making sure they get all the ticks, and I'm sure that zebra is enjoying it. They only seem to shake them off when they try and go in their nose and in their ears. Oh, no. Nelly B, I feel like you've done this on purpose. You've asked me what sound does a zebra make. James does the best zebra call out of all the presenters, but they sort of go hip 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 hip. Manu, what's your best zebra impression? No, you've got to try. I embarrass myself all the time, so it's your turn. You also have to embarrass yourself. Go, Manu. Come, let's hear your zebra call. It sounded like a bird. Well, there we go. That is the call of the Manu zebra. And I can't do it very well. I think we should get everybody. I wonder if Steph will play part of this. I don't know if he will. And Steph will do his zebra call. Maybe Tristan will. Tristan will be keen. Tristan always plays along. Some morning beats. It's always nice. Manu and I listen to a lot of music as we're driving around. But yes, there's lots of zebras here. They seem very relaxed. I don't know if there's any lions around. Zebras are such vigilant creatures that if there was something about, and plus the impala are here too, I think that they would have let us know. So let's keep moving. Let's go and find these lions because they've been killing lots of things around here. Lots of wildebeest. We found dead ones. And I think it's too much of a coincidence that we've had 2 different kills within such close proximity of one another. We need to investigate around here. I don't know what pride's in this area. I actually don't even know where I am at the moment. I'm somewhere in the reserve. We drove far, far, far away looking for those cheetah. The other thing, though, is I can only think is that maybe those cheetah just did a big loop and went back to the Hammerkorp area, which is also a possibility. Oh, wait, starling. Now I must get my bird book out. Are you superb starlings? Do you have a white? Yes, they are superb starlings. They are such beautiful birds. I have yet to get a picture of one. Can you believe it? I've been trying and trying and trying and trying. And now Brent was telling me that there's another starling that looks similar to the superb. So I'm just going to open my bird book cookie and we're going to do a little bit of birding here so I can learn about another one and keep an eye out for it. ST. This book is too big. There's just too much in here. Oh, there we go. Starlings. I remember it started with an H. Hildebrandt, 606. That's the one I'm after. Open my book. We're almost there. Let's have a look quickly. Oh, that's bright. Taking some time for my eyes to adjust. Goodness gracious, I need to put my sunglasses on. So there's the superb starling. That's the one we're looking at. So it's got the white breast band, as you can see. And then the Hildebrandt, number 4, is this one here, which is quite cool. What are you looking at, Manu? Oh. There we go. Neither of us were concentrating. I just want to quickly show you. So this is the one we were looking at. Also, I don't know if I'm on air anymore because I can't hear Kirst, which makes me nervous. And this book is so big, I can't even hold it for you. This is a disaster. Okay, so those are the ones we're looking at. This is the one I must look out for. So it looks very similar to the superb starling, but it doesn't have that white breast band, and it's also got a red eye. So those are the differences. So we'll keep an eye out for that, which would be quite cool. This is superb again. I think we're all fair, Manu. Let me check my phone. Don't know. Hello? Anybody there? Anybody there? No, I have no messages. But also my phone is not connecting to anything. Andias. We'll just keep driving and I'll just keep talking to you like I'm live. What are we going to go and see? Kirst, are we there? Oh, still live. We're having a problem with comms again. I do apologize. I don't know what has been massacring all the animals around here. There's just dead wildebeest everywhere. Let's go find the predator that has caused this. I should also probably find the road. Whee!
Welcome back, and of course, you know, it looks like a blustery day like today, and where Taylor is making her signal chop and change. We're still busy searching for elephant, and it's been the most bizarre morning. It's been like walking around in a deserted village. There's just not much going on. There's just this feeling that you can walk around and you don't have to worry too much about it, which is the actual positive spin of a day like today, where you haven't got too much going on in terms of large mammals, at least anyway. It gives you this, I feel like walking around, as you see, with my hands in my pocket, mainly because I'm freezing, and secondly because, it's just, it's a nice walk today. Seen some amazing things so far today. The two of note have been two enormous tree wisterias. How's that for absolute cold frontal lobe freeze taking away my ability to think? So we've seen two fairly large, the largest one I've ever seen. Tree wisteria was the type of tree that grows out here that had a bark or diameter about this big. It was about 20 minutes ago. You guys were watching some zebra crossing a river with Scott when we saw it. Now they're rare because for years and years people traded in this particular wood, and traded in chopping down the trees, and of course then selling the trees on, and so you don't find a lot of these big tree wisterias around anymore. Now Roshni, you'd like to know what trees and plants have I planted in my life? What were planted in Djuma? Okay, sorry Roshni, you wanted to know what trees and plants were planted in Djuma. There were no trees and plants planted actually in the bush here. This where we are now, this wilderness area has been wilderness area forever. So this hasn't been a cultivated area that was then reclaimed and turned back into wilderness area at all. This place has never been anything else except for wilderness area. Luckily for us, in that it's one of the last places on earth where human habitation, although has been part here for hundreds of thousands of years, early Iron Age sites existed here. But basically, to come back to your question, Roshni, not in the bush. We haven't done any forestation things in the bush. In the camps, at least anyway, where we've needed to bush up places. Once again, I think in terms of Djuma, it's probably just been left to its own devices, with a few indigenous cuttings being taken from trees to green up certain areas in the camp. But I don't think any massive amount of planting has happened, Roshni. That being said, though, it's not uncommon to find indigenous nurseries everywhere, and then to buy indigenous plants and plant them in your gardens. I've planted in houses that I've lived in all over the place. I've managed to plant a lot of indigenous trees, and taking sort of some of the bush with you when you go back to the more urban environment. Let's see if we can get through the bush on this side. What we're going to be doing is going over to Scott, who's just busy driving around in the Mara. In the meantime, I'm going to find something quite interesting to look at you. I think I need to show you something small when you come back.
That's my zebra call, but I usually do a whistle, actually. My whistle is more of a... I think sounds a bit better than my... As you can see, it's not very good because the male lions that are snoozing nearby have not even opened an eye. So they clearly didn't think that I sounded like a zebra in distress. Morning, boy. Cute. What a pose. And he's not alone. He's with one of his partners in crime. We just don't have such a good view of him at the moment. And I'm not too sure who these guys are. I'm guessing they are Scar's compadres. But it doesn't look like Scar is in fact with them. Judging by this area, it would be likely that it is in fact the same coalition of 3, of which Star is a part of. But so often with coalitions, they're not always together. They often split up to make sure that they are effectively patrolling their territory, and possibly one of them may have ulterior motives, sneaking off with a lady while his partners don't know anything of the matter. Okay, well, it sounds like you've got some issues with my audio, so we are going to send you across to Tristan, who has hopefully got better audio and has also hopefully got a better zebra call than me.
Oh, I don't know about a better zebra call, Scott TD. I've heard your zebra call, so I know what I'm competing against, and there's most certainly no chance for me to do. In fact, I don't even think I could do a zebra call. Scott is a master at it, and so we'll leave that to him. Now, apparently my audio is also not working, which is news. There we go. Let's try and see if we can get my audio work better. There we go. Better, Senzo? Better. Okay, so it seems as though my audio is now better. Yeah, I don't know what's going on between Scott and I. We're both having bad audio this morning, but oh well. I'm sure it will sort itself out eventually. Now, I have had tracks, funny enough, fairly fresh ones from during the night. It's a little bit before this rain that we've had this morning for Tundi, or looks like what Tundi's tracks. There's a female leopard track, let's call it that. Let's not worry about who exactly it is just yet. But going all over the place, up and down on Nyala Road North, Nyala Road South. Now, there is this little orphaned Nyala that we've seen that's not far from this area at all. So I wonder if she wasn't going up and down towards Buffelshoek Dam for water and back to a carcass. So I'm in the area just investigating. I've just seen Steph and Rexon now, as also I've told them to basically have a little look as well, and just to double check in case they see anything. It's a lot easier for them on foot than it is in the vehicle to be able to spot tracks in weather like this. It's also, now that the roads are getting damp, it's getting harder. It's really tough to see any clear indication of a track, but it's good news at least that there is some semblance of a footprint somewhere, and hopefully that means we're going to have a bit of luck here somewhere. Hang on a second. Now, I just want to double check, because it almost looks like there's a lioness track here. But while I have a look and just double check and make sure on what these are, let's go back to Steph, who I've just passed with a beautiful 8-legged friend.
We definitely do have an 8-legged friend, and this is a new species for everyone. I've only just managed to identify it a couple of days ago. This is called a feather-legged spider. And the spider is the horizontal grey line that you're busy seeing in your frame. This is the spider there on her web. And she doesn't spin a web as such. She's just got this triangular web with her egg case over there. That's her egg case. This is the spider here. And what is unique about this particular spider is the fact that they don't have any venom glands. And that is unique for a true spider, and one of the very, very rare spiders, true arachnids in the world, that doesn't have venom glands. What she does is she injects digestive enzymes into her prey, which basically is what venom is, but she injects it, she chews it in basically, and then she eats her dissolving prey. Isn't that nice? The feather-legged spider. Now, a friend of mine, Lee Guttridge, who is a very well-known naturalist and someone that I use as a mentor, says that these spiders are not indigenous to this particular area in the Kruger National Park, and in actual fact they are spread worldwide, and nobody knows which country they originate from. So they're naturalized. It's an alien species that has become naturalized in the Kruger National Park, just and the rest of the world basically, but nobody knows the originating country. So one of these true migrants, if you were to call it that, I suppose, that has managed to colonize the world all over the place, and is not indigenous to South Africa. So the only one of its kind here, the feather-legged spider. Very happy I showed that to you. And like we said, we're going to show you something small before the end of today's freezing cold drive. Whew. We need to get moving again. I'm starting to get freezing. You can see how the hairs on my arms are starting to stand up. Now that's quite an interesting phenomenon that mammals have, is that each hair on my arm and on yours is attached to a small muscle, an erectile muscle. When you get cold, that muscle contracts and the hairs stand up, and what that does is it slows the movement of air down on and close to your skin, which gives your body heat time to heat it up, and I'd like to say that I could feel that it's warmer. But I think that's just my imagination wanting it to be. Now you can see impala, who get their name, the Afrikaans name rooibok, which means the red buck. They get their name from the fact that when they're cold and their fur stands up to slow the passage of air, it shows up the very red undercoat that they have, and they become virtually red, a blood red color, as their fur stands up and their undercoat is then exposed where we can see it, and they're getting cold. They become these fuzzy red balls, and it's where they get their Afrikaans name from, or their local name from, the red buck. Alright, we have myself going to get some warm now. We're going to do some push-ups and some jumping squats here and see if we can warm up. In the meantime, we're going to send you over to something quite nice.
Well, I wish Steph the best of luck with his push-ups and warming up. I'm hoping that these lions decide to do the same thing. Or at least that the sun does it for them, because if they do get nice and warm, they will hopefully move into the shade, and when they move, we'll be able to get to see them in all their glory. That is in fact Scar, the male lion we set out with the hopes of finding this morning. He obviously didn't read the fine print. We wanted him doing something, not with his head buried in the ground. But he did, for a moment or two, have a look around, so that is how we can be certain that it is in fact Scar. He is a very distinctive male with a big scar over his right eye. And I mean, it would be interesting to know which lion is the most photographed in the Mara at the moment, but I think he is in all likelihood one of them. Yes. He's a bit arrogant. He only puts his head up when you say nice things about him and tell him how famous he is. Yes, Scar. We would like to make you more famous, though. And that very fancy hairdo of yours. An absolute brute. It'll be interesting to see how much longer he survives for, because it must be said he is on kind of the end of his reign, because he is old and a little bit battered and bruised from many, many fights with other lions and possibly getting tangled up with the odd buffalo. Thanks very much to all of you guys who have expressed your joy that I have managed to find him. I have only spent very brief sightings with them, all of which have been fairly uneventful and not the best for getting great shots, both for you and also for myself with my little camera snapping machine. And it would be terrible to leave the Mara without a good snap of him. Seems like this morning may not be the day though, unless, like I said, they start getting a little bit too warm. But after a wet and cold evening and a long misty morning, I think it may be a while before they decide to relocate into some shade. It's still fairly cool. There's a slight breeze broing with an R as opposed to blowing with an L. Although, the fact that he started grooming himself is a good sign. Hello, Dos Santos. You'd like to know, how do lions deal with tick bites and fleas? Well, they try and nibble ticks off, and you might actually be doing that right now. They use their teeth to nibble and pluck ticks off. Fleas, they can only scratch, I guess. So they don't have much of a defense against the old fleas. And to be honest, a lot of the wild animals don't have perfect solutions to deal with parasites. Unless, of course, you're a herbivore and you can outsource that job to the local oxpeckers. Sadly, lions don't have that same privilege. Oxpeckers aren't interested in doing business with cats. I guess even their tongues are probably rough enough and strong enough to be able to dislodge ticks that have latched onto them. Oh, yes. Get up. No, that's not what we wanted you to do. Oh, well. At least he's moving about a bit, unlike his partner, who looks like he's been struck by lightning. Another thing I can't wait for one of us to be able to share with you is these guys crossing the Mara River, ideally towards us, not away from us. So, we could be on either bank of the river when they decide to cross. But as long as they are coming straight towards us, it would be an awesome, awesome scene to behold. I know we got one male lion crossing the Mara River on one of the river cameras, but I'm not too sure how good that footage is. And I think it was crossing away from the camera, not towards it, which is not the ideal shot. Well, both of them appear to have been struck by lightning. So do we stay or do we go? A question we ask ourselves very often when spending time with lazy lions. Hello, something Dave. You would like to know, how far is Savo from the Mara? And there's Savo East and Savo West. I think it's fair to say, I think it is the largest reserve in Kenya. I may be wrong, but it is a massive ecosystem, and it stretches on to two sides of the main Mombasa highway that runs from Nairobi, the capital, all the way to Mombasa, the main port in Kenya. I would take a guess, I don't know the exact distance, but I'll take a guess that you start reaching the Savo West ecosystem about 250 kilometers away from here. Maybe 180 miles or so. So that's just a guess. It's further to our east, the Savo ecosystem, and slightly south. I've worked on the edge of the Savo ecosystem, another wonderful area called the Chulu Hills, where a lot of the elephants migrate to, from Amboseli into the Chulu Hills and then through to Savo. Amboseli is also another wonderful, wonderful park where you get iconic views of Kilimanjaro and elephants waltzing through the dry salt lakes. So I think it's roughly about that far. Damp Rat, Dave, so I didn't catch the first part of your name. Oh, Dump Rat, not the Damp Rat, the Dump Rat. Interesting. What is a Dump Rat, Dave?
I don't know.
Let us know exactly how you came up with such an interesting name, please. Okay, well, I think that we should head off in search of greater things. with the aim of coming back here this evening when hopefully these guys are going to be a little bit more cooperative. It seems like, I mean, we didn't see Scar's belly very well, but it does seem like his partner on the left looks quite full-bellied. So that also doesn't really aid in our plight. We would prefer them to be a little bit hungry, because when they are full, they become extra lazy. Unlike Steph Winterboer, who is never lazy, regardless of whether he is full-bellied or empty-stomached. Why don't you go and see what he's up to?
My colleagues in their funny ways of saying things. We've come out to another of these Tamboti thickets in our endless search this morning for something large and grey and with a trunk. And this one is unique to the ones that we've been in before, in that this is a very young Tamboti thicket. You can see that there's a uniform size of tree here and very dense. And what I've noticed, I haven't noticed the evolution of a Tamboti thicket at all, but what I have noticed in the scale of Tamboti thickets we find is the fact that after some time one tree ends up dominating all the others and ends up becoming large. And initially I thought it was the parent tree with some baby trees around it over the years, but I'm not so inclined as to that train of thought anymore. I personally feel at the moment, although I lack any sort of evidence for this whatsoever, is the fact that a Tamboti thicket is all one joined thicket. In other words, this is all one tree, and eventually one tree rises as preeminent in this thicket, and then over the years, and as we see, the thicket dies away as the tree becomes healthy and robust and is less prone to being damaged, and you're left with just one massive Tamboti tree. Because when we find large Tamboti trees, but very large Tamboti trees, they're growing alone. There's not a thicket like this. And these thickets are almost always just young trees and made up of young trees with no large adult trees around. So I don't know. You know, it's interesting. Just these thought patterns that go through my head, basically, and don't mean much. I'm trying to find a nice pathway to walk through here, and zigzagging. And of course, the zigzagging is keeping us warm, so it's not too much of a story. Watch out for this genre. Here we have a hook and stick branch. Now, Michael, you want to know if the sap from any of these trees can be made into an edible syrup? Yes, absolutely, Michael. The sap from the marula tree is quite nice, and you can eat that. And the sap from the leadwood tree, in actual fact, has been used by bushmen for ages as a type of sweet. So this is a leadwood tree. This one is dead, of course, and won't give you any sap whatsoever. But the leadwood trees themselves do have sap runs from time to time, and you can milk the sap out of a leadwood tree, and it gives a very sweet tasting, lovely sap. Not quite the same as rubber. You can't eat rubber, but not the same as rubber or maple syrup. Not the same type of very runny sap, but it comes out in the same sort of consistency and tempo. Wow, the rain is coming down now with some pace. I wonder if it's going to be like this for the rest of the day. The birds are still busy singing. We're still sticking to these thickets, as you can see from the rain on my head at the moment. You'll see that the drizzle, it's going to start running just now. Right. Now, from rain and freezing cold to Taylor up in the Mara, where here it is sunny and a blue sky and lovely.
Oh my goodness, we still have had absolutely no luck. Before I get stuck, go into low range quickly. So, Manu and I have decided to leave the cheetah, to leave the female lion with the cubs, to leave the 4 male lions, because they obviously don't want to be seen by us again. We're going to head towards the, I don't know how to say it, All Missing Pride, aka the Balloon Pride. which is apparently not a real name, but that's what the local guides call them, so we shall call them both. And we're going to head, I think we're going to go that side, hey Manu? Are we going to get stuck here? No, we should be fine. Let's go through this little muddy bit. Oh, that's quite deep. Yeah, a lot of these cars, I think, are going through maybe with out 4x4 and then getting slightly stuck in the mud, and they can get out of it relatively easy, but then spinning, and then what that does is it just digs a trench, which is no good for people like me who likes to take chances when going through crossings like this one. Guinea fowl? Actually, this is quite cool. Would you like to cross the river first and then just show me how deep it is? And if your head disappears underwater, I know it'll be fine. Ben, now you're wondering what my spirit animal is? It has to be a lion. I can't think of anything else. I don't know, Kirst, maybe you can give your input here. Besides a lion, what other animal could I be? It's going to be nasty, watch. It's not going to be a nice comment. Ha ha ha. Because that's how we show love in this team. So Ben, I think I would go with a lion just because I've got such a big mane. Oh, that's me. Kirst said that I would be this guinea fowl. Kirst, why would I be the guinea fowl? Kirsty is directing the show today. I want to reason as to why I'm a guinea fowl. No. Quiet in the peanut gallery now. There's an abundance of game though. And if you just look up to the top of the hill, look at all the animals. Lots of zebra, lots of eland. Oh, that's so mean. I love how literally the peanut gallery has now got involved. Ben, look what you've stirred now. Basically, Geraldine, who's our producer, has said that the reason why I'm a guinea fowl is because I'm squawky. So mean. I don't even sound anything like a guinea fowl. Goodness gracious, there goes Racing Stripes. Going for a morning gallop. Perhaps they're training for race day. Oh, a couple of bucks. And, of course, wind. Right, let's try go through this crossing. I think we'll be fine. I'm not really worried about this one. But hold your breath, Manu. Lift your feet. I used to do that with guests all the time. Going through river crossings, I'd start picking up things from the floor and putting them up quite high. And the guests would be like, what's going on? And I'd just be like, I don't want my things to get wet. And then you'd see them all doing exactly the same thing. Of course, I'm just talking absolute nonsense. I mean, this is going to be shallow. It's sinking! No, we're not. Okay. So you just go out of 4x4 now. I think, we've got to go in that direction. I think we normally follow this lugger around. I think this is balloon crossing. Hey. I feel like this is balloon crossing. Zebra, what on earth is going on with you today? They really are. It's like they're training for something. They're not being chased. They're just running around, whether it's just them stretching their legs or maybe there's a bee stinging their bottom, but there they go. Why would I be a zebra? Kirsta's now changed her mind. She said that my spirit animal should be a zebra. But you've got to give reasonings behind this. You can't just make these ridiculous statements. Oh, Kirst says, because I'm very energetic, but I've also got a bit of a bite. I learned from the best. We've established this. It's actually a wonderful area. I can't believe that there aren't any lions around at the moment. And there's so many different types of animals. There we go, bucking bronco. I wonder if it's just the stallions, all a bit rowdy at the moment, and, well, this is the only way they seem to be able to take their frustrations out is by, galloping about. And I think there might be a few things biting their bottoms too. Every now and then you see their heads swing round and give their rear ends a bit of a scratch, as far as they can stretch around. That must be very frustrating. Imagine being stung by a bee or a wasp constantly and not being able to swat it with your hand. Yes, you have a tail, but I don't think a tail is particularly accurate. Very cool, though, with the mountains in the background. It is quite lovely. It's now getting very hot. I'm going to get sunburned again today. I'm going to have to apply sunscreen liberally in a minute. And there you all are. Okay, let's carry on though. Let's go around. As wonderful as what this is, I would like to find some cats because I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself today. Being a bit of a drama queen. Well, most days I'm a drama queen. Well, we can watch the zebra roll though, as long as I don't get to face the sun. Let's see if anybody else is going to join in. No one else in for a roll this morning? Not that was a very good spot to roll. I mean, typically when they roll, you want to kick up some dust, cover your body. That was just rolling in the mud. That wasn't too good. Huge herds of animals here, though. So this might be a good prospect for this afternoon. Maybe everyone's just resting up and hiding away, and will reveal themselves a little bit later today. The afternoon safaris seem to be incredible. The morning ones are turning out to not be my favorite. All swishing their tails. We did have quite a bit of rain as well, so the insects are going to be horrendous this afternoon. Right. Let's go. We shall go that way. Manu earlier asked me who I was waving at. And I was trying to think and try and figure out where exactly the cheetah had gone, because I'd seen one of their footprints. So I was standing and I was talking to myself and I was using my hands. Manu goes, "Taylor, who are you waving at?" And I was like, no one. Just trying to point in which direction I think the animals had gone in, which I was wrong. Didn't even get that right this morning. But we'll keep scanning along here. These luggers are very popular with leopards and lions, and cheetah apparently too. So we will keep checking them as we go along. So are we going in the right direction, Manu? There. Okay. We're just trying to remember where we've got to go. We did see a whole lot of cars racing down in the opposite direction that we were driving, but no one was nice enough to tell us where they were going, unfortunately. So we'll try and speak to some of my friends. I don't know if they're out on drive. I'll send them some messages and maybe we'll get an update for this afternoon. We're going to head towards Lugga, where there's a big pride of lions that lays about, and hopefully they'll be doing something exciting. In the meantime, Tristan is also still bumbling around, and I think he's feeling sorry for himself too.
Well, I'm not really feeling sorry for myself. It's nothing really much I can do about the weather. Weather is weather, and that's how it goes. But come back to where those tracks are for this leopard. You can see them moving right next to my tire track there. That's moving southwards. But the thing about them is that what makes them very confusing is that there's literally tracks going in every single direction you can imagine. There's a track coming out of there, coming the opposite way. So there's another one in that area over there. Then there's tracks going south. There's tracks that are going east, and there's tracks that are going west. So she's literally just done, I don't know, maybe she was doing some exercise yoga around here, but there's just tracks every single direction that you look. And this is the only place I can find tracks. I can't find any more in Central, I can't find on Yala Road South, I can't find on Vulture's Nest, and I can't find any up near Buffelshoek Dam either. So I don't know if maybe she's got a kill somewhere in this general vicinity that she's going up and down like this. Maybe she was chasing something, I don't know, but we've looked around. I can't really see too much. I haven't heard any alarm calls, and so I don't really know where she's gone. The nice thing though is that we've got Steph and Rex not too far away, and they're going to come and have a little look themselves, see if maybe they can find something in this drainage line and all these little riverbed sections. I think what I might do is just head up towards Hyena Road and just check Hyena Road if she hasn't come out on that side. You never know, maybe we'll get lucky in that area. But definitely she's been very busy here. Now some of the tracks are prior to the first rain we had last night, because we had a little sort of drizzle in the early hours of the morning, and so some of the tracks are before that. Other tracks are after that, but before this rain that we're having now, and so I'm not sure where second thought maybe right now, I'm sorry, there's a bit of breakup in my picture. I'm in a bad area at the moment, so I'm going to try and just check around.
Hello everybody. Now, these birds I haven't seen yet in the Mara, which means they're in all likely migratory. and it's either an Adbim stork or a black stork. I'm just trying to get a bit of view. They're a little bit far away now, and I'm also paging through my book at the same time to assist me in trying to positively identify who in fact they are. Give me a second to look through my binoculars. Definitely got a bit of a reddish beak, some of them. Why don't you guys come and have a look at the book? It's a tricky one. So it's either of these two at the top. Oh, let me move that shadow. So I can't be certain which one it is. Why don't you guys let us know what you think? I'm leaning towards black stork. I don't know why. They look so similar. The one thing that I've noticed is different is that the Adbim stork have got this slight little white shoulder patch. So let's see if we can see that on them. If we don't see that on them, then I think it's fair to say they are black storks. And interestingly here it says they are much more solitary than other migrant storks, which means that maybe it is the Adbim stork. Thank you, Joey in Australia, for giving us your thoughts. Oh, look at this view. Nice Davy. That was great. Brief but great. And I think, Joey, you are right. I think I may have seen a tiny bit of blue on their face when they were flying. As you can see in the picture there, there's a little bit of a blue patch there. And another thing that's important about this is that it says here that they are gregarious with tens of thousands following recent rains. And we have just seen a bunch of them together as opposed to, according to the book, the more solitary black storks. So that's wonderful. Where have they come from? Leaves breeding grounds in the northern tropics to be present in East Africa from October to May. The northern tropics is where they've come from. Well done on making it here. Good to have you in town. What's interesting regarding other storks is that we saw a few European storks in the same area, but I think I only saw them for 2 or 3 days and not a huge bunch of them. So they would have been making their way further south, possibly all the way to South Africa. But I'm surprised that we didn't get more of an influx of other European storks coming through the Mara. So maybe the ones that we saw got lost, took the wrong route. Who knows? Wunderbar. Thank you, Joey, in Australia, for helping us piece together that puzzle. Very, very good. Now we're probably about a mile away from where we scar earlier. He often likes sleeping under this gardenia bush off to our right here. That's one of his favorite spots. That big green bush. Had him sleeping under there before. Hi Michael, you'd like to know if the breeding season up here in Kenya is similar for birds, is similar to down south in Djuma? And yes, it does appear to be coinciding. The summer months here seem to be the breeding months as it is in South Africa. But I think because we are on the equator, we're going to get a lot of birds that will nest throughout the year. Because there's not huge changes between the seasons, you find that throughout the year in equatorial wilderness areas, the going is kind of similar and / good throughout the year. but there definitely seems to be a lot of birds starting to do their breeding calls and get into their breeding plumage. I think it definitely is quite similar to South Africa, but possibly not as a defined period. You may get a few random outliers that get to make love throughout the year, as opposed to just in the summer. It's turned out into a beautiful clear day. For those of you who have just joined the safari, it was a misty morning here in the Mara. Hi Jacqueline, you'd like to know where do birds go in a very, very windy storm? And I guess they try and sit on the branches of the tree that are not towards the terminal ends, which will obviously be getting blown more than others. They may even seek refuge on the ground. And to be honest, sometimes they get blown away, they get blown off course. We found a pelican in the Mara River the other day, a youngster. That guy definitely got blown away from wherever he was supposed to be. And it's not uncommon to get, after big storms, birds that you don't expect to find in an area all of a sudden around. So I think they do get some unfortunate scenarios where they get blown off course. But a lot of the time, I mean, with most of the wild animals, be it birds, lions, snakes, anything, there's not too many places for them to go when there's hectic weather. They've just got to just try and push through and bunker down to the best of their abilities, but often there aren't places for them to escape to. Wonderful. We're going to send you off to Steph. I'm told it is all of a sudden raining in Djuma, I think.
It is raining where we are. We're trying to hide out in these thickets where we're getting out of this wind-blown heavy mist at the moment. As you can see from the shirt, that we're trying to walk away from the rain. It's wet on the back and dry on the front, and that obviously is stopping the water from running off of my massive windshield on top of my head and into my face, which is a good thing, because the sun cream that I put on this morning is obviously not that effectual this morning. It's freezing. Both Jandre and I are standing over here, noses running, shivering, trying to stay warm. One of those days. Anyway, we're going to carry on hiding out in this thicket over here and trying to rub ourselves warm. You're going to be going out to Taylor, who's enjoying that sunshine out in the Mara.
Oh my gosh, Steph, keep nice and dry. It's terrible that it's just started raining, and it's very chilly in Djuma as well. We are almost at the Laga where we have to start searching. I don't see any lions just yet. I wonder where they are. Woo! I was supposed to do that. Nice. You see, I just wanted to just see how good the handling was on this car. I give it about a 7 out of 10. Mani, did you enjoy that? You know, that moment when the mud... So, I'm like a dressage horse right now. We'll just carry on until the car decides to go straight. Hang on, what have I seen? It's ridiculous driving in this mud. Where was I looking? Termite mound. Termite mound. Rock. Tree. Okay, no lions just yet. Let's keep checking though. What's that? No, I already looked at that. Going crazy. Okay, now we've just got to remember where exactly they like to lay. I mean, they're probably not going to be in exactly the same spot. They would have moved. They would have had to have gone to look for something to eat eventually. No, it's just a case of where are we going to find them? Whereabouts on this lugger will they be laying? And it's quite thick as well, so it can be a little bit on the tricky side. laughing at my driving. I didn't even do that. That was just the car that just decided that it was just going to go where it wanted to. These things happen often, I've noticed. I'm just trying to remember where we were last time. Did we? I think we crossed here, didn't we? Yes. Yes. Okay, we know where we are now. Which side though, Manu? Left or this side? This is my left hand. Okay, right. Through the water we go. Just want to go back a bit because it's very muddy here. I'm like a child, aren't I, in these cars? It's so slippery, my tires don't even want to grip anymore. There's just mud caked on mud on mud on mud. Oh, we'll have to stay in low range here. I suspect there will be more random sliding, so we won't be going fast. We'll just be going very slowly. Because then you can gracefully do a donut, like what I did just before. You don't want to go too fast when you know your car could at any moment lose control. It's important that you do just take it easy. I have to remind myself that because I get quite excited. Now I'm checking because it's starting to warm up now. Driving on these luggers could be quite cool because we're still looking for our python. Hey, Manu? Still searching for the rock python to be sunbathing on the banks. Have not seen that yet. But we'll just be positive and optimistic. And hopefully, maybe one day, we'll get to see it. Just yet. I am scanning. I do apologize. I'm just making sure that I check the lugger properly, because if they are laying flat, I could easily miss them if I don't concentrate. And also the mud. I don't want to get stuck again. Can you get double marshmallowed? This is what I want to know. Can you get 2 times the marshmallow reward? And then does it mean that 2 people have to get stuck before you can hand it over? I don't think Jamie was very clear on the rules before she left. But yes, I'm actually quite proud to be the new marshmallow queen. Let's check here for tracks because it's nice and muddy. We can actually see if there was a lion walking here. No, there's no lion tracks, so just look like some wildebeest tracks. So not as easy to come and find this pride of lions as I thought it would be. I thought they were just going to be here all the time, but that's obviously not the case today. Maybe I'm just going to have a day where no cats want to see me because I saw all of them yesterday. I still can't believe how many cats I saw. It's just outrageous. Please can I have that again? I didn't hear the middle part. What was the longest drift in a car? We can try. No! Okay, so that's what you said, because as you were repeating yourself, it cut out at the exact same point again. So X-Ranger, you're wondering, what is the record for the longest drift? I don't know. Shall we create one? We're going out of 4x4 for this though. You ready, Manu? Hang on, I'm just trying to pick my corner wisely. Wait, no, this is not... Okay, hang on, we're gonna go now. No, it's not slippery enough. Maybe here? No, of course now when I want it to drift, it's not going to. No, now it's not slippery enough. We can do this. I hope there's no cars watching me. No. X-Ranger, I'm sorry. We'll have to go back to our slidey spot. We just don't have enough slipperiness here to get us going. And I've even taken us out of low range now and it's not working. So that's a little bit disappointing. When it's really flat, you know where it would be quite cool is the old cattle trails, because that basically is an area where there's just no grass, and which is quite cool, and then you can just do this. It's lots of fun. You can tell that I do that often, can't you? Okay, I'm going to try and go through here without getting stuck. Tristan, however, is not slipping and sliding. It seems as though he's taking a slower drive, and Kirst has described it as if he was driving Miss Daisy.
go, Taylor McCurdy. That's because those that do like Miss Daisy don't end up being stuck for 4 hours up to their axles in mud. Now, drifting around in black cotton soils is generally probably not the best idea. It's better rather just to go the other way. We're lucky that we don't have a lot of black cotton soil here or any of those really muddy kind of sections. We have mostly quite a sandy based soil, so we don't get to be able to drift and slide nearly as much as what Taylor is on that side. Also, we haven't had really enough rain for any of that just yet. In 2012 it was quite fun though. In 2012 you could slide and drift and meander your way through the bush, quite fun actually. The problem with it was that you got stuck every 5 minutes for about 4 months, because anywhere you drove, even if you slightly put your wheels off the road, you would just sink into a bog of horrible stuff. So it wasn't so pleasant for a few months after that 2012 flood, but it was fun driving every now and then. I must be honest, I had a lot of fun doing it. Becca, in terms of places to hide for animals when it's raining like this, there aren't really that many, to be honest. They'll try and find themselves some shelter in the form of the thickest trees and shadiest, thickest bushes that they can. So I don't know if you remember, Becca, if you saw Mvula the other day, but he went in under a guarri bush and tried to get himself into the thickest piece of sort of area that he was surrounded by and just get underneath there, and that's where they kind of sit and shelter. But it's not really great shelter at the end of the day. It's not like we would be able to go inside into a warm, cozy house. They just have to suffer through it. And I can tell you that I'm glad that we have developed such things as houses and fires and warmth and heaters and all those kind of things, because it is fairly miserable, to be honest, to be out in the cold, windy, wet weather. And I feel sorry for the animals. It must be a hard day when it's like this, because they kind of get soaked and then they've just got to sit there and wait until the sunshine comes out. Luckily they're quite geared for it. Most of them have fur that they are able to kind of keep them warm, and they'll puff up and it almost acts like a jersey and just kind of insulates them. But most of them will just try and find a thickish area, so anywhere with lots of bushes and trees that they can get in underneath, and then spend their time just resting in those areas. So that's generally what you'll see. It's probably why we haven't seen too much this morning, is because most of the animals are doing just that. Right, well, while we try and see if we can find some semblance of life in the Sabi Sands, Scotty D, who seems to be on a roll, has found lots and lots of interesting things this morning, and well, he's now found himself a rather large group of very interesting animals.
Shame it doesn't sound like too much fun down there on Djuma. Good luck, Tristan. We have got a beautiful, beautiful scene here in the Mara. Bright and sunny, filled with elephants. Absolutely wonderful. And I guess the Djuma crew is going to get more and more used to the rainy weather that they can expect in the coming months. We've had quite a lot of rain to deal with here in the Mara. There's been a surprisingly large amount of rain outside of the kind of short November rainfall period, and the head guide of Angama Mara, which is the camp where we stay close to, said he has never experienced so much rain. Let's check this baby out here, Dave, on the right. Sorry, it looks like it's found something to play with. What are you getting worked up about? I just saw it shake its head once, and young Ellies can be very, very playful and hugely, hugely entertaining when they find small animals to chase. Imagine its perspective walking through this long grass. Come on. Get back to your playful spirit. Now, it seems to have drifted quite far from its mother, which is interesting of an elephant that size. So it may well come running back up to it. Now, I've just spotted those guys over there. Well done, Darby. Who also seem to have a little bit of a spring in their step. Let's see what they get up to. Maybe the kids all want to have a little bit of playtime. Oh, they're sizing one another up. It's not a very fair match, this. Looks like there's a bit of a bully in the herd. Oh, you are being an absolute bully. Stop that. Let's see if the mother intervenes. I can't believe it's just pinned the other one down. Yeah, that's better. Now you're going to get a bit of your own medicine. Another cousin's come in and intervened, thankfully. How cool was that? What a wonderful, wonderful scene. Did you just see the Ellie throw the piece of grass onto its back? I'm not sure if we got that. I'm busy switching between looking down at the monitor and looking up to make sure we're not missing any other playful young Ellies, but it seems like Dave's all over it. He's not missing anything. Oh, speed wobble. One just hit the deck there, head first. This is so cool. And you'll probably find all these young Ellies are in a good playful mood because it is warming up. They would have been quite cold last night after what was a wet and rainy evening. Is that the bully again? He's got its go-to move. Shame. Pick on someone your own size. Has he got it completely pinned down now? I wonder if we should reposition or if we should just stay put. Bit tricky to know what to do now. Let's creep forward a bit. I think that's going to help a little bit. They are, of course, moving out into a more open spot. Absolutely wonderful. It's not always very often we get to see animals playing with one another, and it's such a great thing to witness. Hi, Rebecca, you'd like to know if baby Ellies will ever injure one another whilst playing. I guess, occasionally through default, yes, they may. But I don't think it's intentional. That's for certain. Some, like this individual who keeps jumping on the others, may just not realize how much bigger and stronger he is than them. But it doesn't matter because the one who's getting pinned down seems to be getting, or at least for a short period of time, a bit of reinforcements from another one. Oh! Epic. One of the youngsters has run off to its mother. It's like, I've had enough of this. You guys are getting too boisterous for me. And these are all very, very useful life lessons. Ellie's, oh, look at how fast you can go. Ellie's, like most animals, especially the bulls, will need to fight amongst one another from time to time, mainly for ladies. The females aren't going to have much of a need to fight, but practicing these skills is useful in case they come across animals like lions or anything like that. They therefore know how to fend for themselves. This is too good to be true. Putting on a real show for us here. How funny was it when it started screaming? Little high-pitched baby trumpets. Sadly you can't hear that. Now you can hear it. Oh, we've got another runner. Now if we're really lucky they'll come running straight towards us. Sometimes they run straight up to the vehicles charging. Oh, is it going to come all the way to us and show us how big and strong it is? I think it might. Hello? Come and show us how big and strong you are. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, you kick that sand. Just like that. How epic. Now it's going to be feeling more confident because of all these other elephants around it here, so it may even come closer towards us. Some of them are only a few meters away now. How cool. Incredible. Listen carefully. They're letting off some gentle rumbles. One of the ways that they communicate. It's one of the most fascinating noises. Well, what a special scene this has been. Just hear their feet gently padding through the grass. I'm so happy that youngster came all the way just about up to our vehicle to try and intimidate us, show all of its cousins how mean it is. That was absolutely wonderful, and it's been quite some time since I've been lucky enough to share a playful elephant scene with all of you guys. So I'm hoping you all enjoyed it. I've already got some feedback from Kirsty, who's directing the show, saying you are all very happy with the way these elephants have displayed their playful, youthful energy for us. It seems like all has calmed down now. Back to business as normal. So we will continue perusing. Wunderbar. Another nice Ellie scene here. Oh, it just finished, but it may happen again. There was one youngster, that one over there, that was busy nursing its mother. But I think we just missed that. Let's give it a few moments though and see what they get up to. Now, what's fascinating is that these four are not closer to that other large herd that we saw just walk past the vehicle, and I always wonder how exactly the dynamics work with elephant herds. Unless you know herds individually, which some people might, but it's tricky because they're not territorial. It's difficult to know whether 2 or 3 herds have joined up together, or in fact if it is one large herd. Hi, Layla. And on the topic of herds, you'd like to know if the herd that's just walked past us is a typical sized herd. And yes, I'd say that is an average size herd. Anywhere between 20 and 30 elephants, I think, would be considered standard. Anything less than 10, like this, would be considered small. And anything upwards of 30 or 40 would be considered a large herd. But a lot does depend on the area of Africa where you are spending time. So often the same species of animal will act very differently depending on where in Africa it is situated. Alrighty then. Now I was hoping to try and get close enough to camp to try and seek out the African blue flycatcher for you guys again this morning. We got lucky yesterday morning with another brief glimpse of one, but I don't think we are going to have enough time. We've still got about another 15 or 20 minutes or so before we get back into that area. And we are going to send you back to Djuma, where Tristan and Steph have bumped into one another.
Well, we have, but we've left them already. They decided they didn't want to stay with us, and they just walked away and left us on the open area of quarantine all by ourselves. So they've gone northwards and are trundling up the road back towards camp, given that I think Steph is probably, as much as he doesn't want to admit it, freezing his backside off because he was clutching his arms as though he was quite cold, and since he's not wearing a jersey or a jacket in this kind of lovely windy wet weather, I'm sure he's pretty chilly. chilly. But it just shows you also the difference. I was just looking at the two of them now, or all of them actually, and having a look at, they don't appear to be even remotely wet, whereas if you look at us, we're far more damp, and it just shows you from driving how much more rain you can collect as you go along than by walking. The good news is that I did find something of interest while I was driving, which is great, because it's the only thing really I've seen the whole morning that has been fairly interesting, bar our leopard tracks. But we had another of the migratory species, the first one for the summer, which was a red-backed shrike. So the red-backed shrikes are arriving back now, which is also grand news. Now, hey, settle down. Don't want you flying away. But the redback shrikes they take a very arduous journey, really. They come all the way from northern Europe, well, not northern Europe, Russia, really, and that's a long way away. And so nice to see the first one. It was looking very displeased. I'm sure it's probably thinking to itself, I came for a summer holiday all the way down to South Africa where it's supposed to be warm, and I've arrived in this nonsense. And so it was just sitting all puffed up, but when we tried to get it on camera, it unfortunately just hopped off into a little thicket, and we couldn't actually see it properly after that. So, but at least it's a good sign. I'm sure we'll start to see more of them over the next little bit. Oh, hello, impalas. Oh, you're a sight for sore eyes. It's been a while since I've seen an animal, actually. So nice to see some impalas coming out and making their way towards quarantine. I think they decided that there's not going to be much going on today. They can make their way onto the open area and not going to get too blitzed by the sun like they have been over the last few days, and so maybe that's why they're coming out into this section. But they look all alright. They don't look as though it's too bad, the weather. They all kind of look fairly happy with life. They're all looking in one direction, which means they probably have seen Steph and Rex and all of them coming past, and that's why they're standing to attention. But they do look pretty good, don't they? And with this kind of misty weather behind them, it's actually quite nice. There's kind of these soft colours. There's two of them having a little game. It's really been fascinating, the impala behaviour over the last little bit. Generally, we see the rutting and the boys sparring and really going at each other and chasing each other around in the rutting seasons, which is anywhere between sort of April and June that you start to see, the rutting taking place, and there's almost kind of two fever pitch sort of periods within that time frame. But they have been practicing a lot of the rutting display recently, and I don't know why they're doing it. It's an odd situation. It's not like in the Mara where you have male impalas rutting or mating all year round. Here we don't have that, and so strange to see our male impalas displaying those kind of things and calling and chasing each other and being quite fierce towards one another. It's quite odd for this time of the year, but we'll see what that all leads to. Maybe there's just some sort of dispute that's been happening lately that they've needed to all sort out. But I actually quite like that picture. Like I say, it's misty, it's dreary, but it's also quite nice with the soft colours behind them. Very cool to see. You can see they're all just ruminating away, and that's the nice thing about weather like this, is that they can sit right out in the open and they can ruminate. They don't have to worry about being on top of food all the time and kind of expending energy finding food. They can sit and stay warm and just ruminate and gain energy from that. So you'll see that they'll spend a large portion of their day off. I'd imagine a lot of the ruminating animals will be in a similar state for the day, and will also be fairly out in the open like this. Nancy, so you're wondering about their metatarsal gland, the black spot on the back of their rear legs, and whether it has a purpose. Well, there's a lot of theories, but no solid concrete proof as yet as to what it is for. Being glandular, it does then release a scent or a pheromone, so they think that there is some sort of part of that helps with them staying in touch with one another and finding herds if there's been a disruption by predators. So they believe that there's a pheromone that is released, and they can then follow that scent. There is also a belief that because of the contrasting black spot when they're running, it's much like the tail, and they're able to then see that and know that that's a safe path in order to follow if predators are chasing them. It's also just a good follow me signal when they are kind of stotting and making a display like that. So those are the kind of two schools of thoughts, but there's no concrete proof for either of them as to exactly what that gland is for. The interesting thing about it is they're the only ones who've got it. And so there must be a reason for it, and there must be something that is specific to impalas' behavior that causes them to have that. Right, well, we're going to limp our way home and go and dry off and get Jigger a little comfort and dry him off too. And while we do that, let's go back to Steph, who I'm sure is still embracing his arms in the cold and is pretty glad that he's going to be making his way to a warm beverage in camp.
I think I'm locked in this position. It's not for want of me. Stretch open. Luckily, it stopped raining now a little bit. It was pouring at an earlier stage, and the wind has just picked up, and it got a bit uncomfortable here. But you know, it's part of it, and at least the fact is that we're outside and we're enjoying the bush. And so, although we didn't manage to find our elephants today at all, we have managed to have quite a nice walk down the Mawati, and of course, the biggest benefit for today was the fact that Scott managed to find Scar. So he set out with a mission, and he got to show you Scar and the crossing and everything else. And of course, through all of the gremlins, we've managed to bring you some interesting things today as well, which are quite nice. So, although we'll be out again this afternoon, and we won't be on a walk this afternoon. There's probably going to be a walk again tomorrow or the next day. But from all of us here, we just want to say thank you very, very much for your support. Of course, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you watching and sending through your questions. Thank you very much to my entire crew and to everyone else who produces the show. Thank you very much. And wherever you are in the world today, I hope you have some fun, and we'll catch up with you in a few hours.